No, and of course, just ask Danny Baker as to how that ends. But yeah, no. So it is bizarre, isn't it, that Banksy's art is so pricey, because it is essentially, a lot of it is just graffiti, isn't it?
Well, that's it. I mean, as I say, you look at I have to say, obviously, it'd be nice if Banksy came on the show, I guess, to sort of talk about it, perhaps unveil himself and everything else. But, he really has come on. I mean, actually, I have to say, the brushwork is fantastic. And it goes to show that Banksy is much more than just a guy with a stencil and an aerosol.
Yeah, he was the lead singer of Massive Attack. Right, carry on.
John Lewis seeks discounts from landlords.
I'm getting over that sort of wonderful kind of outing.
Wild accusation that Patrick's just made.
I'm going to have to lie down for a moment there. But whilst we do that, let's go talk about John Lewis. John Lewis, never knowingly undersold. Well, they're trying to undersell their rental bill by trying to slash some of the cost of rent for some of their buildings by up to 20%. And this is actually something we've seen lots of retailers do. We know retail is shocking. Ted Baker had an absolutely awful set of numbers out yesterday. Every single retailer out there is trying to cut their rental bill, and obviously landlords are taking it on the chin. And if John Lewis are doing it, then you know that it's just prevalent, very, very deeply across the whole sector. So no surprises. They're looking for 20% reductions. So I reckon if you're going into your John Lewis, maybe they can pass some of that on to you.
Yeah, High Street not in a great place at the moment. Driverless cars reach milestone in London trial.
Yeah, this is exciting stuff. We all know about driverless cars, and for another time, we'll talk about my experience in San Francisco in a Tesla, which was quite exciting. Anyway, obviously that's all. It's a big trend, very exciting. We can see the future, robo cars and everything else, autonomous cars. In London, they're cracking on with doing trials in a busy urban location, and obviously, being the UK, being London, being this wonderful place that we live in, we're using Ford Mondeos. America gets Teslas. Japan probably has some next generation thing from Nissan or something. We get Ford Mondeos. And so anyway, the Ford Mondeos, you may see them around London, are kind of trialling. There's going to be a big rollout, I think, with Addison Lee, amongst others, next year for further trials. But it's coming, in sometime in the 2020s, we will have autonomous taxis and cars rocking around London and other places in the country for our benefit.
I mean, you're obviously well known for being chauffeur-driven in your Bentley. Is this something that you're likely to go down the route of, or not so much?
Well, I quite like it. Yeah, I mean, obviously, any opportunity to crush the wages of the chauffeur would be wonderful. So I think the robot is the robot's very cheap. No, more seriously, it is actually, I think, a good thing. I tell you why. Because in theory, it can help really reduce congestion and stuff like that. Just because you kind of optimise where cars are and stuff like that. But obviously, we need to go through all the safety checks and everything else. But I have to say, it is blooming impressive, even though I nearly did die in a Tesla. But that's another story.
Do you know what? I think we save that story for next time. Yeah. That will all be revealed next week, the moment when Chris Bailey nearly died in a Tesla. Chris, as always, have a great weekend.
Same to you.
Great stuff. Chris Bailey, their founder of financialorbit.com. Driverless cars? You?
I'm bang in favour of driverless cars, mate, given my experiences with Uber drivers over the years.
Yeah.
I'd rather they were driverless. Also, I've said this before, say it again, trains, tubes, fully roboted planes, because then pilots who are already on 175 grand a year can't go on strike and ruin holidays for loads of poor families who've had to work 2 jobs to go to Disneyland and this kind of stuff. Naff off. I've got a robot here to do it.
And the robots will do it for 150.
Oh, well, every single time, yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
We want artificial intelligence, but not so intelligent enough they can organise themselves in a union and go on strike.
Yeah, that's the next level. Let's talk a bit about the England squad, because it was announced. There were a couple of notable omissions, one being Dele Alli, one being Lingard.
Yeah, right. Is Lingard a notable omission?
Well, I mean,
The guy's like the anti-goal. He had a great chance last night against Alkmaar as well, and what happened? Just spanked it over the bar.
No, that was a good effort, I thought. Good touch, fired it in, just went wide. And it was actually quite a tough effort. It was bobbling a little bit, and I thought he got a good connection.
I don't know how much Lingard has paid you, Rich, but it needs to stop.
Walker omitted as well. They're probably the 3 notable ones, I'd say.
Yes, I suppose so. I mean, I think, to be fair, that Kyle Walker has just dropped down the pecking order, hasn't he, really? When you look at the wing-backs and the centre-back options that we've got in this England side at the moment, can we just say, just before we get stuck into the overall squad, what an exciting time it is to be an England fan. I mean, it's just sensational. For the first time in my life, it's the fact is I'm now more of an England fan than a Manchester United fan. And it's the first time in my life I've said that, because I watch England play and it's exciting, it's exhilarating, there's passion there, there's speed, there's actual quality. It looks like you might somehow do a goal. Whereas Manchester United at the moment, it is like, watching Manchester United is like trying to eat soup with a fork. It's horrible.
Yeah.
It's pointless.
Yeah, I see what you've done there. It's a great analogy. Very, very good. Of course, Tammy Abraham has been called up, so all being well, he will play, and that will be his decision made, you would think. I just want to make a note, and this isn't necessarily one of our main headlines, but of course it is a main headline, us being a London station. Neil Harris leaving Millwall, which I think I'm not alone in thinking that's quite a surprise. I know he's getting a bit of stick from sections of the Millwall
But why
fans.
is he? Why?
Well, look, the style of play they play is very much Millwall. And that's no disrespect. It's what Millwall have done.
What's that? Elbows out?
It's quite a robust style of football. Yeah, of course. And it's reasonably direct, but it's one that's worked for them. And in fairness, he's got them from League One into the Championship once again. They performed brilliantly the first year in the Championship. Last year was a struggle, but they have got one of the lowest budgets in the Championship. I just wonder what the expectations are or can be.
Would it be? Well, I mean, it's an interesting development, isn't it? That the Millwall fans want more culture. It's So I just find that's astonishing, isn't it?
Alienate all the Millwall fans. If you're a Millwall fan, by all means, get in touch. 0208 70 20 558. Call in and let us know your thoughts on Mr.
Why don't you
Christys.
just give them my address and be done with it, Rich?
Let's just do that. Patrick won't be joining me Monday. I will be joined by Paul Mortimer on Monday, which we are looking forward to. No, I was surprised by that. Really surprised, because I just think that, I don't know, there's I suppose, slight similarities with even more so than the Mick McCarthy leaving Ipswich, because it is that be careful what you wish for. You know, I just worry for Millwall now that they'll bring someone who doesn't fully understand Millwall. And by the way, Neil Harris is a club legend.
Tell me how
that.
to understand Millwall, Rich.
Millwall's not your regular club, Patrick.
Talk me through it.
Do you know what? We've got to go to the news, but we
interesting.
are going to go into a little bit more detail on this very, very shortly. But look, do stay tuned. Lots to come. We're going to be talking more about the Europa League. We'll be talking more about Millwall and plenty more athletics too. 3 minutes to 7.
Love sport.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. This means that travelling to the EU will change. You'll need to check online if your passport is valid for travel to Europe. If you're planning on driving, you'll need to check if you have the right documents to drive, and make sure your travel insurance covers all your healthcare needs. To keep your trip on track, check what you need to do at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Hello, I'm Tim from Bolsover. I'm a retired teacher. I was looking for a better electricity deal from my parents when I got an email from a spokesman said it was a fixed deal for 2 years, which was better for my parents, less for them to worry about. And when I had a look at the sums, I had to recheck because I couldn't quite believe it. They were going to save over £900 each year they were on that deal. Needless to say, we signed up pretty quickly.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
There are many things a mother can pass on to her baby. Her smile, her eye colour, and her immunity to whooping cough. Whooping cough is a very dangerous illness for young babies, and at the moment it's spreading fast. A simple vaccination during your pregnancy can help to protect your baby in their first weeks. Please speak to your GP, nurse, or healthcare professional and pass on your immunity.
Love Sport Breakfast, Love Sport Radio, myself, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys. We are online, digital radio, your Alexa smart speaker. You can even find us on YouTube these days if you wish. We're on WhatsApp, 0208 70 20 558, and we're on the socials, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at Love Sport Radio. Still to come on today's show, we're going to be speaking to Rai Hooper, Wolves fancast. Of course, a last-minute winner for Wolves against Besiktas. We'll be getting his thoughts on that game. We're also going to be speaking to Andrew Sparks. He's the first-team goalkeeper coach at Southampton and former academy coach at Red Bull Salzburg and New York Red Bulls, to get a bit of an idea as to how the Red Bull model works. It is actually a very, very interesting model, so I'm quite excited to have that conversation. And of course, we will be talking more athletics, another good day for the British, and we'll be talking plenty more football, no doubt, and lots more in between that too. Maybe even some front pages too. 7 o'clock.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7. There's been an 83% drop in the number of social housing builds in rural England over the last 6 years. An investigation by Sky News and a leading think tank also found rising rates of rough sleepers in the same areas. The government says it's focused on creating affordable homes rather than social rent. In rural villages, residents like Sarah Holden are objecting to further housing developments.
We've got a village school, we've got a pub, we've got a shop, but that doesn't mean that you can suddenly throw in hundreds more people and everything that they bring with them.
The Home Secretary's warned Facebook its planned new privacy controls will help terrorists and child abusers avoid detection. It's introducing end-to-end encryption for messages so no one apart from the sender and recipient can read them. But Priti Patel says it'll turn the platform into a place where criminals can communicate without being caught.
Encryption is creating those spaces for terrorist individuals, terrorist organisations, child abusers, the people that are seeking to do harm to others, children, individuals, and our own countries and our national security.
Talks will continue in Brussels today between the government and EU negotiators, but the signs aren't good for Boris Johnson's hopes of a Brexit deal. EU leaders say they're not convinced by the UK's proposals. A Banksy painting has sold for a record £9.8 million at auction in London. Devolved Parliament shows MPs as chimpanzees sitting in the House of Commons. Katerina Thompson says she feels in a good place to take her World Athletics Championships form into next year's Olympics. She secured heptathlon gold for Great Britain last night. She says her next priority is getting a well-earned rest.
It's been a long season. I've been competing since January. I did an indoor season as well. I feel like I'm in the right place. I've got the right training. Yeah, I just want to build.
And there was mixed success for British sides in the Europa League last night. There were wins for Arsenal, Wolves and Celtic, but Manchester United drew and Rangers lost. That's the latest. I'm Tanya Snuggs.
Love Sport.
For my whole life, I didn't know if I even really existed, but I do.
Joker is the film of the year, says Empire. An instant classic, says NME. The Guardian calls it gloriously daring.
People are starting to notice.
Total Film says Joaquin Phoenix is astonishing.
Send in the cloud. When you bring me out, can you introduce me as Joker?
Joker, in cinemas now. Certificate 15.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport Breakfast with Richard Lee and Patrick Christys.
Welcome back, Love Sport Radio, Love Sport Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. Let's touch on a few of those headlines this morning. It was not a particularly good night for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, even if he did think it was a good point away at AZ Alkmaar. Man United drawing 0-0. A much better night for Wolves. We've got a last-minute equaliser against Besiktas, and a very good night for Arsenal. Their youngsters won 4-0 against Standard Liège. And it was a great night for Katerina Thompson. She buries mental demons to win the heptathlon world goal with a British record of 6,981 points. And not such a good day for Millwall. They have lost their manager. Neil Harris has walked away. We'll be talking more about that and so much more in the next hour. We're also going to talk a little bit more about this England squad, the shock omission of Dele Alli and Marcus Lingard. I've mixed up two players there.
Yeah, Jesse Lingard's brother hasn't been picked for the England squad, although, to be fair, the rumours are that he's a better player. So, anyway, shall we just go through this England squad?
I think we should.
Tom Heaton, Jordan Pickford and Nick Pope are the keepers. Defenders, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Ben Chilwell, Joe Gomez, Michael Keane, Harry Maguire, Tyrone Mings, Danny Rose, Fikayo Tomori, Kieran Trippier. And then we've got Ross Barkley, Fabian Delph, Jordan Henderson, James Maddison, Mason Mount, Declan Rice, Harry Winks, Tammy Abraham, Harry Kane, Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho, Raheem Sterling and Callum Wilson.
There you go. A couple to mention. I think we have to mention Tomori. There were a few question marks as to whether he would get the call or not, which he has. But do you know, it just shows you, this is the whole chicken and egg, where all of a sudden you're playing for Chelsea, you get the call up. Now, Tomori, had they not have had the transfer ban, would likely have gone on loan and would not be getting the England call up. But it just... I mean, is it that simple that once you're in a team like Chelsea, which has been forced upon them, and by the way, he is excellent, don't get me wrong, but it's been forced upon them, but we've been saying this for such a long time. Actually, why go and spend 50 million on the likes of Fred when you've got players here that can actually come through the youth team and show what they're doing, like Tomori, Tammy Abraham, Mason Mount, etc.?
Well, he first came to the attention of England selectors when he was actually playing for Canada's under-20s against England.
Wow.
And he shackled Marcus Rashford, apparently, so well that he alerted them and they went, hang on a minute, mate, you got any English in you? And he was like, oh, yes, I do, actually. We shouldn't really be playing for Canada. And they went, all right, okay, come on in. So they welcomed him into the fold then. But you're right, it is this sliding doors moment in sport, isn't it? Where, so you look at what's happened to Jack Butland, for example. You know, looked like he was going to get a summer move. It didn't materialise. Looks like his head might have gone a little bit. And now he's not getting a game for the team at the bottom of the championship. He's nowhere near this England squad. He couldn't be further away from it. Whereas like Tomori, with the best one in the world, I hadn't really heard of him much before this season. I did bits and bobs, of course, but got a really good look at him this year. All of a sudden, he's in the England squad. Yeah. And it is just these little snap decisions, and a lot of which are out of your control as well as a sports star, that, you know, massively affect your career. But fair play to him, he does look a good talent.
Let's hear from Gareth Southgate on his decision to call up Tomori and Abraham.
I don't think it's ethically right just to give a player a cap to make sure that they can't play for somebody else. The two boys that are in the squad this time, Fick and Tammy, are in on merit. As far as we're concerned, they're born in England. The two boys have been developed through English football. They're English players.
He's actually touched there, because Tomori's one that we haven't really spoke about on that front. Like, we spoke about Tammy Abraham and the fact that he could play for Nigeria. And, of course, he just made the point there that we're not the type just to give him a cap, just to secure them. But, of course, if he does give them the cap, it does secure them. With Tomori as well, then, that's the case. Of course, there's so many players that I guess fit this bracket where they can play for several different countries. And certainly with these two in particular, I mean, we go back to the likes of a Ryan Giggs back in the day, you know, when he could have chosen England, obviously ended up choosing Wales, and you just wonder, had Ryan Giggs ended up playing for England, might that have made a difference to the England team moving forward? Have we got a similar situation here where it is a case, look, secure these guys early, because actually, although it's early, I think both will end up playing 50 games plus for England.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. It certainly looks that way. There's no reason at the minute to doubt it. And I don't think we should be ashamed of doing this. I mean, look, at the end of the day, you know, Jofra Archer, yeah, we kind of poached in a cricketing sense quite late in life, didn't we? You know, we've had the likes of Kevin Peterson. These people were born here. They were born and raised here, and obviously had their footballing education here. And that's that, really. I think there's no reason why they shouldn't be playing.
Yeah, no, born and raised in the playground is what they spent most of their days.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So just touching on
It's
Tammy
Friday.
Just touching on Tammy Abraham in a bit, but like, it wasn't a surprise that he got the call up. I mean, he has been sensational at the start of this season.
Yeah, Tammy Abraham has. Look, I think Tammy Abraham's a real talent, and Harry Kane keeps dropping off for me, and he looks like the heir apparent to it. But it is just this exciting young talent now that's coming through, and I just, I like I said, it gets me off my seat now watching England play in a way that Manchester United used to and no longer does. But, Southgate's there saying he's not afraid to drop big names. And I think actually, and maybe this is maybe the role that we're slightly overlooking here, or is being overlooked with this focus on the players, because it's all very well and good saying, oh, isn't it amazing that Tomori has got a call up and Abraham's got a call up? I think absolutely everyone thinks they deserve an England call-up, so it shouldn't be a shock. But what is a shock for me is an England manager who's had, he's obviously had some club experience with Middlesbrough, of course, but actually for someone who is seems like a relatively meek and mild kind of chap, he is not afraid, Gareth Southgate, to make strong decisions and to drop big stars and to pursue his vision of football. I mean, that's the thing. How many England managers were so afraid of failure, like Fabio Capello and your Roy Hodgsons and these kind of people, your Steve McLarens, where you just churn out a team with no particular identity. You just set up in 2 banks of 4 and, hope to occasionally knock it long and get a result. Whereas Gareth Southgate actually has started a bit of a footballing revolution in this country. We play out from the back. We're all about young talent. He's not afraid to make bold selection choices and have an attacking mindset. What a guy. What a guy.
What a guy. Interestingly, only 2 Manchester United players make this squad. One who has made it is Marcus Rashford.
He's on the kit, man.
The other one is Harry Maguire.
Oh, okay.
Which arguably Harry Maguire deserves to be there. There is question marks, certainly as the way Marcus Rashford started this season, whether he does deserve to be in the squad.
Yeah, it's a strange one with Marcus Rashford because clearly there's a great player in there just screaming to get out. He's not there at the minute. I just wonder whether or not it's worth having him in the setup just to have a look at him, because sometimes players do play a lot better for their country than they do for their club, and the fact is he is going to be in a better team when he's playing for England, isn't he?
Yeah, indeed. Well,
actually, just that's an interesting point. Actually, I wonder if I'm trying to think if that has happened before, where I'm looking at an England team and saying that I think you would beat Manchester United every single day of the week. I don't even think I think the golden generation would have done it because Lampard looked like he never met Gerrard.
The whole point as well is that club football, of course, you work together day in, day out, and you build that. Ordinarily, club football is better than international football because, of course, it's what you do every single day. Suddenly, you put a random group of players together, it can take time to gel. But I think you're right. I think actually this might be the first England squad that would beat Manchester United.
I think it'd probably finish 3rd in the Premier League.
Okay.
I think it's England too, and that is brilliant, isn't it? Because this is the best league in the world, right? And the teams Liverpool and City have compiled, some of the best players from around the world, of course. Well, the fact is now, I reckon that our England team would probably finish 3rd in the Premier League.
What do you think? 0208 70 20 558. Touching on United, because I guess this is the point as well. You just said that he will be going into a team which is better. So Marcus Rashford playing in an England team, of course, better. Will it mean better service? If he ends up playing very, very well for England, again, that's another indictment on United. In fact, let's hear from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Yeah, well, it's a good point away from home against a good opponent, difficult opponent, very difficult surface. Remember, they beat Feyenoord 3-0 away from home just now. We made many changes, and I'm very pleased. Of course, it should have been a win. I'm fed up talking about penalties we should have had. Arsenal on Monday and now. So that's a penalty 101 times out of 100, because you cannot make that decision wrong in football.
There's a penalty 101 times out of 100, Patrick. That's what it is. Of course, he was talking about the game last night. United drew 0-0 away with AZ Alkmaar. Did not register a single shot on target, interestingly.
No, it's pathetic. And what a contrast to Arsenal. Well done, Arsenal, by the way. It was a fantastic performance last night. 4-0 in the end against Standard Liège. Martinelli looks a real player. Scored on 16 minutes, and Willock as well. 22 minutes, and Ceballos on 57. Arsenal top of their group, played 2, 1-2.
We're going to talk about them shortly. Just back on United, though, he's obviously comparing his team to Feyenoord to an extent, saying, well, look, this team beat Feyenoord, therefore he's trying to justify the fact they've gone there and got a 0-0 draw. But we can all see, for anyone that watched the highlights, and our producer Kieran was commenting on the fact that it was incredible they managed to find 5 minutes worth of highlights. So some of the highlights were pretty dreadful. Like, it was...
Yeah.
I was kind of waiting for the highlight.
He's got a kind of small island mentality, right? So when I used to live up in the Lake District, I moved from the Lake District, which is essentially sheep and old people, to London, which is not, right? And I'd gone back up to visit. This is about a year or two ago. And I'd just had a night in London where I think it was my girlfriend's birthday. We'd gone to see a show on the West End, gone out for a lovely meal. We got the whole Uber X back. We'd done all sorts of stuff. And I think the night before that, 2 nights before, I'd been out with some friends, Fabric nightclub, decent. You know what I mean? It was a good little setup. And then I went back to Kendal in the Lake District, the land of mint cake and the gateway to the lakes. And I remember just chatting to someone on the street. I bumped into them. I hadn't seen them a couple of years. I went, "Oh, nice to be back into it. Can't beat Kendal, can you?" And I thought, well, there's a B&H home stores there that's shut. There's a McDonald's that is just awful. It looks like everyone that's dropped out of school. I mean, the whole place is just grey and horrible, you know. And that's like kind of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's point, which is if you come from Norway and then manage Cardiff, for you, like that is the pinnacle of it. It's like, oh, you know, Feyenoord, you can't beat Feyenoord, can you? Can't beat Feyenoord. You're managing Manchester United, mate. You're supposed to beat everyone.
When they said Kendall, maybe they meant Howard Kendall. You can't beat Howard Kendall. He was a fantastic manager. Maybe that was the point, because I'm pretty sure you can beat Kendall.
Did you just do the one stand-up gig?
Didn't have a career, unfortunately.
I want to talk quickly about what's going on the back page of the Times today, about the FA ramping up pressure over Manchester City and Liverpool over Spygate. Yes. So we've all heard this, that Liverpool paid Manchester City secretly, although we all know about it now, in 2013, £1 million because they apparently accessed their scouting logs online more than 100 times. In fact, hundreds of times, it says here. So this was all very hush-hush, of course, right? Now, bear in mind, this kind of came out in the wake of the Leeds Spygate scandal and stuff. So anyway, the FA has finally decided that it's going to try and get involved with what is obviously, clearly, a massive breach of rules here. Because it says in the FA rules that each club shall behave towards each other and the league with the utmost good faith. Now, 3 of Manchester City's former scouts and scouting staff went to Liverpool to work, and they are accused of accessing the Scout 7 system on hundreds of occasions. And indeed, one of those gentlemen is a chap called Michael Edwards, who is now Liverpool's sporting director, and he was named in the settlement. So this is just a bizarre setup, because I would have thought if I was City, you don't need £1 million, do you, for a start? And why would you settle for that? Surely you would want Liverpool to face the full wrath of this. I wonder what City have been up to.
We're going to discuss this in more detail very shortly. We're going to get David Brent's thoughts on Manchester United too. 16 minutes past 7.
I like Putin. He gets me. I like Trump. I've got him.
This is Love Sport. The Novotel London Blackfriars, the official hotel partner of Love Sport. Located just minutes away from the city and London's famous South Bank. You can kick back and taste the flavours of the world at the Jamboree Bar and Grill and enjoy all the sights of London in style. The Novotel London Blackfriars.
You all right, mate? Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it, sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Hi, I'm Marilyn from Oxfordshire. My current insurance company quoted £245.08 to reinsure. And a spokesman said, obtain me a price of £173.49 for the same cover. This was a fantastic saving for me. And next time my car insurance comes up for renewal, I will be going through a spokesman said. No doubt about that.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Oh, it's okay. Let's face it, when your kids are ill, you'd do anything to help them feel better. But remember, antibiotics aren't always needed. You might not realise it, but taking antibiotics when you don't need them puts you and your family at risk of a longer and more severe illness. Help keep your family well. Always take your doctor's advice on antibiotics. Search NHS antibiotics. All better.
This is Love Sport.
Lost for breakfast. Me, Richard E. Patrick Christys here with you until 10. Of course, we had the 3 Europa League games last night. Good night for Arsenal. A good night for Wolves. We're going to be talking about that very shortly with Rai Hooper from Wolves Fancast. Of course, not such a good night for United. And David Brent's had his word. He's listed the number of teams that could get a result against Manchester United right now.
Reading, Aldershot, Bracknell. You know, I've got a Didcot, Yateley. You know, my Winnersh, Taplow. You know, because I am my own boss, I can Burfield.
I mean, it's scathing from David Brent. I think he's got a little bit far with Winnersh, I think. I don't know.
No, he's probably spot on, isn't he? Only got a Solskjaer there. They'd go away and it'd be like 0-0. And he'd come out and go, yeah, it was a good game against a tough away team.
Winnersh up and coming.
Bobbly pitch.
Typical pitch.
They drew with Wickham at the weekend, so, you know.
Anyway, more positively, Wolves did win. They beat Besiktas 1-0. 93rd minute winner. Delighted to say we've got Rye Hooper from Wolves Fancast on the line. Morning, Rye.
Hi, morning, gents.
Morning. Good win, first and foremost.
Yeah, great win, wasn't it? It was wasn't a brilliant performance, but I mean, you know, I think in sort of context, you're talking about United there. I think they were the last team to win at Besiktas, I think 10 years ago. So, you know, I don't need to tell you guys and the people listening how tough it is to get a result in Turkey. So, just delighted, really. You know, sort of it was. I suppose it was a classic sort of smash and grab. We sort of contained them, although they didn't offer too much, and I think they're going through a bit of a tough patch. So it might have been a good time to play them, but no. Fantastic, really. We've had that group set up when there was a draw in the other group game for us. So, no, great win.
No, brilliant. Was there a lot of Wolves fans that travelled?
Yeah, there was just over 1,000 that travelled. So, yeah, I mean, it's one of those, really, because we've obviously got Bratislava, which is apparently that's going to be behind closed doors. We've got Braga. So I know a lot of people are going to go out for that one. So it's just that work commitment, really. I would love to have gone, but sort of these Thursday nights were a bit difficult. But no, I think about over 1,000 went, so an amazing night for them. And many of those I know would have followed the club after a couple of relegations, and even in the 80s when really things were bad for us. So it was probably quite a pinch-me moment for them, so I'm absolutely chuffed for them.
So obviously looking at the group, it's quite a tough group, by the way. Wolves currently third in the group, 1 win, 1 defeat. Do you think they'll have enough to get themselves out of the group?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we come across Braga in the home game, and we weren't far off on that game. We were probably a little bit naive tactically on that one, but I think with this win and how the group's sort of set up, really, I think you look at the home games, between Bratislava and Besiktas back at home. Braga, well, for some of the players in Portugal, that's going to be a bit of a home from home anyway. But I think, yeah, no, absolutely. I think we're more than capable of getting through the group, absolutely.
And obviously Nuno picked a strong team. Are you quite happy that he's taken the Europa League quite so seriously?
As a fan, yes, because I kind of, alluded to there, it's not always been great following Wolves. And, like any football fan, you have ups and downs. And for my generation and for others as well, we've not been at this stage since 1981. So you don't know when it's going to come round again. I mean, the board have got massive plans, and we hope that will sustain this and will be successful. But as you guys know, it's a fickle game and things can change so quickly. So who knows when we might not be in this, competition again. So I kind of don't understand for some clubs, say at our level, West Ham and other clubs at Southampton in recent years, that they don't take it seriously. I know the league has to take precedence, but ultimately, if you've got a decent enough squad to sustain your position, then, from a fan perspective, and this is where I'm obviously coming from, you've got to embrace it, because you go to Turkey, and win at Besiktas. Those nights, with all due respect for me, are better than a 1-0 win away against the lower side in the Premier League. I'll take that every time. So you've got to take these moments as they come. So yes, I think the league form will slightly be detriment to this, but I think the guys know how to use the squad effectively, and I think from a club perspective, they're fully on board with it. And as you say, it looks like Nuno is as well with his strong team selection.
Do you think that even if it means that Wolves' is progression through, fingers crossed anyway, progression through to the last stages of the Europa League, even if that, say, just costs you a couple of places in the league, a few places in the league, and maybe you're not in the Europa League next season and things, that would all be worth it, would it, for having nights like, Willy Bolly popping up in the 3rd minute of added time at the end of a game and getting you an away win at Besiktas?
I think so, yeah, because, I suppose, really, what's the difference in respect of, yes, okay, we won't win the competition next year, unless we obviously do very well.
Yeah.
It's only financial, really, isn't it? The difference between a few sort of places in the Premier League. So, it was an interesting one. I saw online yesterday, a West Ham fan was saying, they're really really well in the league, and we're 13th, but we're going in the Europa stages, and who would you swap places with? So it's an interesting one, really. But I think sort of nights like we had last night, then it's an amazing opportunity to fans to be involved in. So I think we would certainly take that. If at any point it felt that status was be at risk, of course, but I think we'll take a few drop places in the league, absolutely, to have European nights like this.
Obviously, Willy Bolly got the winner and man of the match performance. How important has he been since your rise to the Premier League?
He's massive. He's, well,
Literally.
in a couple of ways. Yeah. He is. Got to be careful with Willy Bolly. Be massive. No, he's absolutely immense. He's been fantastic for us. We've struggled a little defensively this year, to be honest. And Cody hasn't had perhaps the season he had last year, and he's tinkered a little bit with the defence. But Bolly's place has pretty much been there. He's sort of classic first name on the team sheet. He's a very, very good defender. He's a very classy defender. If anybody listening saw the finish he took and the composure in the box, I think that showed. You know, technically he's a very, very good defender. So he's key for us, but I quite like him to stay under the radar because I think he's a very, very good player for us.
Nuno wasn't entirely happy after the game, saying you need to improve a lot. Of course, it's Man City this weekend. So what's the hope? Is it to keep the defeat to less than 3?
Oh, I don't know. See, it's one of those, to be honest. We kind of get asked about these games, and people sometimes think, oh, it's a bit of a free hit, and it's kind of anything's a bonus.
Well, last season you guys did great. This is the point, though, isn't it? Last season, gets the top 6. You got results.
I think this is it, really. So for me, it's kind of like, well, if you work hard to get in the Premier League, we're not sort of a cup side, or we're not a minnows who are kind of doing it for the glory and sort of the financial point of view. We're there, we'll be taking a few thousand fans who'll want to get a result. But of course, this time we're going to have to come back from Istanbul, and that's going to be difficult. They've got a game in hand, and they look really impressive. So it wouldn't surprise me if we get a point. So, no, I think you've got to be looking to still pick up points, whoever you play, taking all into account, you know, the busy campaign that we've got at the moment.
Great stuff. Right, I've got to ask you something. I've heard a rumour. I'm sure it's not true, but I'm just going to ask it anyway. I hear that you're running a half marathon. Of course, you are very much Wolves through and through, but I'm sure this is just a typo that my producer has made. But he says you're running the half marathon in a West Brom shirt.
Oh, no, mate.
Yeah, you know when you have these ideas, and it's kind of like,
That's a 9-pinter, that idea, mate. That's a 9-pinter.
That's a bad idea.
I know. So, yeah, it's crazy. It's bonkers, but it's for a good reason. So, basically, a very quick backstory. You might hear my daughter in the background getting up there with me.
She just heard. She didn't realise. She didn't realise.
Does she want a job as a co-host?
She's not very happy. So yeah, basically, in terms of the run, I found a story about a young lad called Tommy Brown. Now, Tommy is 7 years old. He's a quadruple amputee. And at 5 months old, he had meningitis, septicemia. He was given a 5% chance of survival. But he beat all the odds, and he's doing really well. But because he needs support, he has to pay for regular physio, swimming lessons, as you can understand, really to sort of give him the best sort of life that he can have. What I'm doing is saying, you know what, as you heard my daughter there, I'm a football fan, but I'm a dad first and foremost. So it might sound cheesy, but ultimately I'm doing it because actually I love football. I love the Wolves. I'm involved with this, the fan cast, but some things in life are more important. So if you want to find out more, I'd probably say go to my Twitter, which is RyHoops, RYHOOPS 83, or if you go and just give in, search for Ryan Hooper, and the details will be there. So yeah, that's next Sunday. Please donate. I'm going to need it, and hopefully we'll raise some money and show that we can all sort of come together in the Midlands for a good cause.
Brilliant. Fantastic, that. Great stuff. Ryan Hooper there, Wolves fan cast, giving us his thoughts on the game last night and his half marathon. Do check that out. Ryan Hoops on Twitter. He'll be running in a West Brom shirt.
Very good cause, that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good cause.
Absolutely. We're going to be getting stuck into some more bit of front pages next. We're actually going to be speaking to Andrew Sparks, first-team goalkeeper coach at Southampton and former academy coach at Red Bull Salzburg and New York Red Bulls. We'll be doing that next.
This is Love Sport.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Brexit will bring changes that affect businesses in many ways, particularly if you buy from EU suppliers, sell to EU customers, provide services to EU clients, and receive customer data from other businesses in the EU. Businesses need to prepare. Find out how at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Hello, my name's Paula. I'm from the Shropshire area and I'm a business development manager. I use a spokesman said for my car insurance where I've saved over £500 and also on travel insurance as well. So in total, me and my family have saved about £600. I would definitely use it again and I would definitely recommend it.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
Love sport.
Lots more breakfast for me, Richard Lee. Patrick Christys here with you until 10 o'clock this morning. It was a good night for us in the athletics last night, Patrick.
It was yet again our British athletes doing the business. Katerina, Thompson. So she won the gold at heptathlon, set numerous records along the way, of course, as well. But I just want to start by just reading out her Twitter profile. So her Twitter bio is chronically indecisive, so I've adopted 2 surnames and the heptathlon, which I just think is fantastic. But yeah, they've done a little comparison to her with some of our other heptathlon greats, such as Jessica Ennis-Hill and Denise Lewis. And actually, it turns out that Katerina Thompson, a woman 26 years old with all the talent in the world, who has, it's fair to say, underwhelmed on the biggest stages of all. Not disappointed, but underwhelmed on the biggest stages previously. Let things get into her head a little bit. Well, she's absolutely smashed it now. So she's got the record for the high jump, for the long jump as well, for the 800 metres, and she has amassed a higher total number of points than either Denise Lewis or Jessica Ennis-Hill ever managed at the Olympics or at the World Championships, bringing home 6,981 points. What a fantastic story it is. And again, just such a wonderful contrast. We had Dina Asher-Smith yesterday. Fabulous young talent, young girl from the Orpington area, who has got 9 A stars at GCSE, 3 A's at A-level, a first from King's College London, and now world champion. Her mum crying in the stands, and we got Katerina Thompson as well, just shattering all kinds of records and doing the business under the Doha floodlights. And then you just compare that to the abject misery of Seb Coe, Paula Radcliffe falling, which we're going to come on to later, by the way, falling out with everyone on Twitter, the Salazar doping scandal. I tell you what, though, the best thing about this with Dina Asher-Smith and Katerina Thompson is that we are not going to be short of Sports Personality of the Year nominations, because actually we're not just breeding better athletes, we're breeding more interesting people now as well, which is
I want to talk about that in more detail. It's going to be tough this year, especially when you think of Ben Stokes and whoever else that's in the running as well. But do you know what? I want to change subject ever so slightly. We've got a very special guest on the line right now. Very special because they are, of course, part of the Goalkeepers Union.
Right, okay, got you.
Of course.
I wonder why you were so excited.
Oh, you know what I get like, especially anything goalkeeping. No doubt we're going to turn this into a goalkeeping.
You put your full kit on.
Shin pads and everything.
Doing the John Terry.
Yeah, you know how I roll. No, interesting story this. We were talking about this the other day, the Red Bull model, the fact that they've got several football teams. Well, it's not just football teams. Red Bull own 15 titled sports teams, 2 F1 outfits, countless extreme sports events. 5 football teams, so Red Bull Salzburg, of course, New York Red Bulls, FC Liefering, Red Bull Brazil, and the crown jewel, which is, of course, Red Bull Leipzig. There's a lot more to this, but we've got somebody on the line who has actually, witnessed firsthand while at New York and Salzburg as an academy coach. It's the first team goalkeeper coach at Southampton, Mr. Andrew Sparks. Morning, Andrew.
Morning, Rich. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Hope you're well. We were talking about this the other day as we're intrigued by this, and I've heard bits and pieces, but obviously haven't seen it firsthand, in that it is a very interesting model that Red Bull have put together, certainly in football, if we touch on that specifically, with the 5 different teams and the way in which they interact and the way in which they recruit, the way in which they've built their different teams. It's quite an interesting model.
Yeah, it's certainly a unique model as well. I think, obviously having 5 clubs under the umbrella of one brand is, I think obviously Red Bull set the trend. I think Man City are doing something similar now. But, for Red Bull, it was a vision that they had, and, they're currently seeing the fruits of their success so far.
Right, so from what I understand, do they interact in a way? Because obviously they're all at different levels. We touched on the fact that the jewel in the crown is very much, of course, Red Bull Leipzig. Is it one where, and we see this with like a Man City, where they might loan players out to certain clubs they've got an affiliation with, the fact that all these clubs are owned by Red Bull, will it be that clubs will often move from one Red Bull club to another?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's, a big advantage of, almost having these 5 teams under one umbrella. I think it's, in terms of player development, if you need to shift a player to enhance their development, whether it be a player from New York going over to one of the European teams for more better competition in terms of weekly competitive games, or maybe a Brazilian player going over to one of the European teams, to develop and nurture there. So I think it's there's a lot of interaction in terms of players and like myself, in terms of coaches as well.
What was it like for recruitment of players? So for those that don't know, of course, your background is you're a goalkeeper coach in the Premier League now, and you've been goalkeeper coach at the highest level, of course, Swansea as well, and several other clubs. Did you learn a lot being involved in the Red Bull brand? So when it came to recruiting, from what I understand, they use data quite a lot. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. In terms of my development in terms of Red Bull, I think that's it's probably the pivotal part of turning my coaching career into what it is now. I learned a great deal there, and I think in terms of Red Bull, in terms of a brand, they're so in depth with everything, and it's in terms of the football side, as you just said, they use a lot of data. They got a big scouting network, and I think with those teams as well, they're able to bring those players in from different parts of the world and develop them there. So they have a robust recruitment side to it, and to see it firsthand was even right at the beginning. You could see they were looking to do something on a bigger scale. So yeah, it was fascinating.
So is it essentially the plan to have a load of bases all over the world, kind of hoover up a lot of the best young talent that there is around there, and then obviously with the football market the way it is at the moment, you sell them on for massive value, and therefore Red Bull essentially makes a huge amount of money?
I think first and foremost, I think Red Bull as a brand just want to be successful. So whether that is winning Bundesliga, Champions League, Europa League, Austrian League, the MLS, or developing players that can be sold on. I think any club these days, it's a business, isn't it? It's and I think Red Bull, as I said, they just want to be successful. So how you deem success, whether it's winning trophies or moving players on for a transfer fee, success can be seen in so many different ways. But first and foremost, they just want to win, be successful in all facets of the organisation.
Well, you look at it and go, I mean, Salzburg, for goodness sake, gave an incredible game in the Champions League against Liverpool. Well, what a performance that was. And if that's a sign of the work that's been done by Red Bull, then all credit to it, to be perfectly honest with you. It was a fantastic game. But how do a lot of the other teams, or maybe other fans in these countries that we've mentioned there, especially Germany, how do they view the Red Bull project? Is there maybe a little bit of jealousy?
Yeah, I was at New York Metro Stars when they were taken over by Red Bull. So I've actually seen firsthand how a takeover goes through. So obviously there's a lot of resistance when a global brand takes over a team, and it's imagine supporting your local team and someone comes and changes the colours and the name of it. It's quite tough to take in terms of a fan base, but I think from there, then they obviously they put a good infrastructure into all the clubs. Financially, they have the backing to be successful in those clubs and in those leagues. And I think a lot of it does go down to then, they're almost changing the tide in terms of landscape in their own countries, where, they, for instance, in the Bundesliga, they started, I think it was the 5th or 6th tier of German football. And then you've always got your Bayern Munich, your Dortmunds, and then 10 years later, this club from nowhere comes. And I think, obviously it's a threat for them to challenge for a title then, isn't it? So, I think a lot of it is maybe a tad bit of jealousy, but I think it's also the kind of new kid on the block and, that kind of stance from especially away supporters. But, as I said, Red Bull, they try to keep some of the traditions within the club. But I guess when you are taking over any type of business, you're going to obviously put your own stamp on things.
I want to touch just a little bit on Southampton. Of course, you're there now, and it was a reasonably positive start to the season. Obviously, the last couple of games not quite gone to plan. Ralph Hasenhüttl help Red Bull Leipzig grow. What's he like to work with as a manager?
Yeah, he's fantastic, and obviously did a fantastic job at Red Bull Leipzig, and obviously had a shot in the Premier League last year, and from nowhere really kept Southampton in the Premier League. And I think for Ralph and the team this year, it's exciting to obviously go through a pre-season with him, and we look forward to a successful season under him.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned there one of the whole points about Red Bull, and by the way, I would love to be in a Red Bull board meeting because the ideas that these guys have, though, like seriously right across the board, whether it's like the squirrel suit flying thing, the high diving into open water they do football, they are just visionaries. It's like it's like they've got a time machine and they're from 30 years ahead and they go, oh, that's going to be popular, and they put it into action.
Do you reckon it could be the fact that they have a lot of Red Bull before they have these meetings?
Do you reckon maybe it's just the most intense meeting they've ever had? But they are such visionaries. But then my point there is to employ someone like Hasenhüttl at Leipzig. He's obviously is a very forward-thinking manager. He's a relatively young manager. Certainly looks like a relatively young manager anyway. So what does he bring to the table on a day-to-day basis? What is it about him that's so special? Is there something new that he adds?
I think with Ralph, and I think I've said it before, with people who come through the Red Bull system, I think it's without being too cheesy, it is the energy that the people bring. And I think Ralph's brought obviously a great energy and passion to the club, and obviously tactically he's got all the knowledge to bring to the team, and for Southampton I think he's obviously a fantastic fit, and it's really great to work under him and to see him obviously in the Premier League. So I think it's as I said, it's a really good fit for Ralph and for the club.
And Leipzig, only football club in Germany where members do not have direct voting rights. All 17 are employed by Red Bull, but they have still grown their fan base to fit a 40,000 plus stadium, which is impressive.
Yeah, I think the stadium is fantastic, Red Bull Arena, just like the one in New York. And yes, I think that's obviously one of the controversial things in Germany. But to see how they've developed from, as I said, when I first started at Red Bull, well, in New York, they weren't even in existent in Germany. And then, obviously I've seen them rise through the German league. So, it is a very unique story. And they've done it in a very short space of time, which I think is also the other factor in it, where they haven't gradually moved up through the leagues. They've done it, almost in successive seasons and been successful. So, it's probably a bit of a shock to German football as well.
And lastly, just a quick one on where you're at now. Of course, Southampton, working with Angus Gunn. I know the England squad announced Angus Gunn not in this particular England squad, but he's certainly there or thereabouts, which is huge credit to him. And of course, still working with Alex McCarthy as well. You've got a couple of really good young English goalkeepers there. What is it like working with Angus Gunn? What potential does he have?
Yeah, obviously Angus is young in terms of goalkeeping, and he's played the back end of last year in the Premier League and obviously the start of this year. So obviously great experience. I think at the moment there's a lot of very good young British goalkeepers in the Premier League, which is obviously from a goalkeeping side, and I guess from an England side is great to see. So with Angus and Alex, whenever they get the chance to play, they're just obviously concentrating on putting in good performances on the weekend, and obviously from my standpoint, they'll start in training. So yeah, both Alex and Angus are a real joy to work with, and it's just good to see them. Obviously Alex has played in the cup games. Angus has played in the Premier League so far. So it's good to see them perform on the weekend. Obviously after good weeks of training. So no, it's been a very good start to the season in terms of from my side settling into the club, and we keep working hard, and obviously that starts in about 15 minutes time.
Yeah, I've got. In fact, one very quick one I want to ask on Red Bull actually was just, obviously they're all over the world now. Do you think they'll move into England?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the English market is too traditional. I'm not sure if that makes sense. But again, you never know. Obviously, Red Bull have massive plans. I think there was talk of them trying to take over teams or sponsoring teams. But for Red Bull, they're not interested in just putting a logo on the front of a shirt. Yeah. They want full control of the club and, do things obviously the Red Bull way, which, I think as you've seen from Leipzig and obviously Salzburg's performances the other day, they want to do things properly and compete on the highest level. So, to have overall control of that is obviously what they want, rather than just a shirt sponsor on the front of a shirt.
Yeah, brilliant. Andrew, really appreciate you coming on.
Perfect, thanks. Have a great day.
Fantastic, you too. Andrew Sparks there, first team goalkeeper coach at Southampton and former academy coach at Red Bull Salzburg and New York Red Bulls. I've actually watched him. I'll go to the odd goalkeeping convention, of course I do. And Andrew's... Huh? What? I heard that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've got an idea.
Anyway, Andrew Sparks gives a lot of talk. He's brilliant. Carry
Excellent,
on.
good stuff.
Thank you.
Well, I think Red Bull should take over Berry.
Okay, Red Bull Berry.
Yeah, Red Bull Berry, because also, it sorts out their new flavour, doesn't it?
Yeah. Clever. Berry Red Bull.
Yeah, Berry Red Bull. And also that club crucially now does not exist. So
true.
Maybe they could just get in and sort it out.
Do you know what is interesting? And this is true, that a lot of these investors aren't necessarily looking at the English market at the moment. Do you know what it's like? It's like house prices to an extent. It's like, where are you going to buy and where's got the potential for growth?
Yes, no, I get that. Although, as somebody who is currently looking for a house around the London area, may I recommend a particularly nice box under a motorway bridge that I've just found that's going cheap.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Dual aspect.
Okay.
It's nice. Minimal leaks.
Brilliant.
And crucially as well, it's en suite. So,
Excellent. It's all in one.
It is.
All
air
in...
conditioning as well if you want. You just open the lid.
Yeah. Do you know what? There's something quite nice about having the toilet next to the bed.
Yeah, there is.
You don't have to travel far.
I actually genuinely, seriously, when I was first looking around flats in London a while ago, I had, you get your estate agent who, I think we can all agree, estate agents are just weapons grade liars, aren't they? Mm-hmm. And then they go, they got round, right? They brought me round and they go, oh yeah, no, and as you can see, this is obviously the flat, and it was smaller than this studio. And he's like, no, and it's great because there's very few properties where your bedroom is your kitchen and your living area. So, yeah, for a reason. What is this? Look for Comic Relief to come round.
I can't wait for the housewarming. 30 minutes to 8.
Believe me, he who laughs last thinks slowest. Ha ha ha, see, that was a laugh because I'm clever enough.
Giving your team a voice. Love Sport Radio.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it. Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger, and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some strong coffee, and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on, sir.
Right, cheers.
Think. Don't drive tired.
Exercise. It doesn't have to mean Lycra or a fancy gym membership. All you need is 10 minutes and you. Because a regular 10-minute brisk walk is a great way to get more active. Whether that's walking to the shops or getting off the bus to stop early. Picking up the pace and getting your heart pumping can make a real difference to your health. So, to see how much brisk walking you're doing and how you can fit more into your day, download the free Active 10 app, because there's only one you.
Love sport.
That's for breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. Of course, we spoke a lot of Europa League last night. We spoke a lot of athletics, which we're going to touch on in a bit more detail now. There's a story about Paula Radcliffe, I believe.
Yes, so Paula Radcliffe leapt to athletics defence in the wake of the Salazar scandal. Now, the reason why she did that, really, is because clearly she was a top-level athlete herself, and she's worked with Nike, and the Salazar scandal embroiled Mo Farah in amongst it, and of course her husband now is helping to train Mo Farah. So you can see the little kind of tangled web there as to why she would not necessarily want to come out and be totally scathing about it. But she got into quite a heated Twitter spat last night with one of the whistleblowers who exposed Lance Armstrong, and she confirmed that she was the anonymous athlete who threatened to sue after it was reported that she had abnormal blood results during her running career. So it paints... Look, I mean, I suppose like anything now, she's an athlete and there's a cloud over her, isn't there? She's a British marathon world record holder. She exchanged angry tweets with Betsy Andreu, who's the wife of Armstrong's former cycling teammate Frankie. She was one of the first people to speak out about Armstrong's doping before his actual confession in 2013. Andreu questioned Radcliffe on her social media platform after she did a BBC interview, which she appeared to kind of try and downplay this 4-year ban that Salazar's got. And this is the kind of Seb Coe response, which is to just try and downplay it or bury your head in the sand. And this is it. But what is interesting is that Radcliffe's abnormal blood results were effectively revealed by Jesse Norman MP in a parliamentary select committee hearing in 2015. Worth pointing out that parliamentarians have immunity to things like defamation laws and slander laws, which we know all about, choose to ignore, and because they're in Parliament.
Yeah.
So they have she can say what she likes, and so then he didn't mention her by name, but she was cleared. Paula Radcliffe was cleared by the IAAF of any wrongdoing over the results. That's important to state. She was cleared over any wrongdoing, but there was an abnormal blood result, and the Sunday Times got hold of this, and the Sunday Times wanted to run it, and Paula Radcliffe sent them an email that just said, "You print it and I sue you. You won't be getting any money back in future like Lance Armstrong, I promise you that." And that was a reference to Lance Armstrong having to repay libel damages to the Sunday Times, of course. Radcliffe actually owned up to this. She said, "I did say that. I was in a distressed state of shock at what they were threatening. I truly admired I truly admired Walsh's and your fight that exposed Lance for the bully and fraud that he was. Now they were going to run a false, damaging story and I knew I was completely innocent." So look, I mean, this is the thing. I suppose it's quite easy to give an abnormal blood test. I mean, it can happen, can't it? And there are a million different reasons why that could happen. But you wrap this up and you think, Paula Radcliffe, for me, I was growing up and she was the athlete. Like Sir Steve Redgrave was Paula Radcliffe. I was probably just called the back end of Linford Christie. And they were the ones really for me when I was younger. And I would have thought that it would be, in her interest, in the way that Ewan Thomas, who does shows with us regularly here, is so scathing about any drugs cheat, because Paula Radcliffe throughout her career may well have lost to drugs cheats, or she may well have been denied, a medal at the hands of these drug cheats. And the fact is, even if she hasn't, loads of athletes have. And I find it staggering, really, actually, that someone who's a racing institution would not be more scathing about the revelations.
No, of course. It comes back to agendas, though, doesn't it? Like you say, there's obviously one or two things that are happening here, the links that she then has to Mo Farah. But that's the point. It can't be a somebody who is detached from the situation who can give an objective opinion. It's always going to be subjective where you've got...
But then don't talk at all is my thing. This is the thing.
I agree with that.
This is why I say you then keep your mouth shut, because if you're only going to act as some kind of unsolicited propaganda mouthpiece for essentially a drugs cheat, then I would argue that maybe you shouldn't talk at all.
No, I fully agree. I think if you can't... Because it's also the realisation that if you take the stance that she did, I suppose it's difficult. Of course, if you're being questioned about it live on TV, you need to have a line set, or you need to literally say, look, I've got no comment on this. I can't win. You know, it is one that she can't really win, because she either then upsets people in her camp, so to speak, or, as she has done, she upsets a lot of people. If you almost seem to be justifying what's happened or to be burying your head, then you don't come across well either.
Yeah, this is what I can't understand, which is how blind they are to it. And this is what makes me seriously question how endemic the doping scandal in athletics is. If you have the head of athletics in the shape of Seb Coe, and you have a British racing institution in the shape of Paula Radcliffe, and you've got likes of Mo Farah there, and they are not that bothered about all these doping allegations, what does that hint to any normal person? Just seriously, what does that imply to somebody? Not just about those individuals, by the way. I'm not trying to make some kind of allegation that Mo Farah's a dope cheat or Paula Radcliffe. No. What does it say about the sport as a whole? If you're that's arguably the two... Certainly, in long distance sense, the two greatest British athletes of all time, probably, it's fair to say, I think, and the coach as well, the overall guy there, Seb Coe. If they are not bothered by it all, really, in an extent where they're that angry, then how do they expect anyone else in athletics to be that bothered about it?
So this comes back, we use this word a lot, the moral compass. It's actually not just the moral compass, it's where the line is. And I guess when you're involved in a sport, do you just become numb to it after a while? And where initially it's such a big thing when someone's a drugs cheat, to almost getting to the point of, actually the game for a lot of them is to avoid being caught. Yep. It seems like it's more that.
That's what their reaction to this implies to me, that they know that so many people are doping, that in fact there are not just state-run doping programs but corporate-run doping programs, and it is a game of cat and mouse between athletes and testers. And this is the thing here, that for me, the fact that they're not that bothered about it just raises so many questions, doesn't it? About actually, do they care? Is it when someone fails a drugs test in athletics now, is it the equivalent of scoring an own goal, where you get a little pat on the back and lucky mate?
That's what I mean. It feels like it's gone to that. I always try and think of football equivalents, a goalkeeping equivalent. I suppose it'd be like if I found out that David De Gea was, I don't know, using Pritt stick on his gloves, to get extra grip, and of course we'd be devastated. But then the more that you hear of goalkeepers using Pritt stick on their gloves, suddenly it just becomes normal.
Yeah, and it's the attitude, isn't it? It's the kind of the attitude that's bred into you, where if you are brought up around athletics and you are seeing the inside of it, and you know that you're going up against drugs cheats the whole time, then it must blur your lines personally. You must go, well, all right, well, I'll do whatever I can to seek competitive advantage, and that is why I think we're getting a lot of these kind of, frankly, as far as I'm concerned, clueless, tone-deaf, washed-up old celebrities coming out saying things like this, which is so wide off the mark that Jesse Lingard would be proud of it.
There you go. Just to give you some of the top stories we've been talking about this morning, and no doubt we'll be talking about again in the next couple of hours. Thompson wins the heptathlon. What?
I just love that name.
Thompson.
Smith-Jones.
Man United, no wins in the last 10 away games. Of course, a 0-0 draw last night, but a much better night for Arsenal and for Wolves too. We'll be talking about that more in the next hour. 3 minutes to 8.
This is Love Sport.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. This means that travelling to the EU will change. You'll need to check online if your passport is valid for travel to Europe. If you're planning on driving, you'll need to check if you have the right documents to drive, and make sure your travel insurance covers all your healthcare needs. To keep your trip on track, check what you need to do at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit wedooh.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
I love my brother. We do fun things like playing together. I like having hugs with Freddie. Freddie gives the best hugs. Freddie used to be very poorly, and the doctor said he might need a new liver. Then one day, a very nice person gave their liver to Freddie. It was amazing. We were so happy. Now he's around to give me more hugs than ever.
Tell your family you want to save lives. To find out more, visit organdonation.nhs.uk.
If you're driving on a motorway and you see a red X sign overhead, you need to change lanes safely. Driving in a red X lane is an offence. Red X's are there for a reason, to protect you and others from danger. The lane may be blocked by a broken down vehicle or road workers, or the lane may be needed for the emergency services. So if you see a red X, change lanes safely. Highways England, connecting the country.
Lots for breakfast, Love Sport Radio, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys. We are online. We're on digital radio, Alexa smart speaker. As always, you can give us a call. You can WhatsApp us as well on 0208 70 20 558. Of course, there's a lot going on today in the world of sport. In the Europa League, not such a good night for Man United as they draw 0-0 with AZ Alkmaar. A much better night for Wolves and Arsenal, both victorious last night. We'll be touching on that more in the next hour. We're going to be speaking to Louis Langton, chair of Arsenal Independent Supporters Association, their 4-0 win over Standard Liège. And, of course, a lot about athletics. We're going to be touching on Nike as well and some of the controversy that surrounds them at the moment. Do stay tuned.
Boycott
Love
Nike.
Sport, 8 o'clock.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 8. It's emerged just 1,300 social houses were built in rural areas of England in 12 months, despite hundreds of thousands of people on waiting lists. A Sky News investigations found building rates have fallen by 80% in 6 years, and rural homelessness has increased by a third since 2012. David Bird has been rough sleeping in the Cotswolds since May.
When it comes down to being homeless, you're an outsider. It doesn't matter how much wealth there is in the place, there's not that many institutions to actually help.
The government claims housing is a priority and the overall number of new homes is up. The boss of Facebook's admitted boosting privacy on the site will hinder the fight against online child abuse. Mark Zuckerberg's under pressure from politicians, including the Home Secretary, to rethink its plan to encrypt messages so only sender and recipient can read them. There'll be more talks in Brussels today about Boris Johnson's proposed new Brexit deal. Yesterday, the EU said it was open but not convinced by his plans. A Banksy artwork depicting MPs in the House of Commons as chimpanzees has been sold at auction for 5 times the expected price.
Breaking the world record for Banksy at Sotheby's at £8,300,000. Here it is. Are you out, sir? For £8,500,000. Emma, congratulations. Sold.
Devolved Parliament went for almost £10 million, including costs. In sport, Katerina Thompson says she's going to have a well-earned rest after winning gold at the World Athletics Championships. She broke the British heptathlon record and says she's been waiting a while for such a dominant performance.
I've not had a heptathlon like that since I was a junior, so I've been waiting for that moment. I've been seeing other athletes get PBs and a big score, and I'm just so happy that I was able to compete and level up.
Arsenal beat Standard Liège 4-0 in the Europa League last night. Celtic beat Cluj 2-0. That's the latest. I'm Tanya Snuggs.
This is Love Sport.
We spoke to the Cans from Sly about what BT's new complete Wi-Fi brings to their busy house.
Now the Wi-Fi literally does reach every corner of the house. We have 11 people that all use the Wi-Fi for different things, and the Wi-Fi disc has helped that so much.
The harmony in the house has improved 10 or 20-fold.
The Cans are 11 more happy BT customers with complete Wi-Fi that guarantees a Wi-Fi signal in every room.
Up to 3 discs to guarantee Wi-Fi or £20 off your bill. Terms apply.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport Breakfast with Richard Lee and Patrick Christys.
Good morning, welcome. Love Sport Breakfast, Love Sport Radio. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. Lots going on in the world of sport this morning. Of course, it was not such a good night in the Europa League for Manchester United last night. They drew 0-0 away with AZ Alkmaar, 10 games away from home without a win. No shots on target. Yet Ole Gunnar Solskjaer thought it was a good point. We'll be talking about that in more detail. It was a much better night for Arsenal. They're 4-0 against Standard Liège with quite a young team as well. And a good night for Wolves. A last-minute win against Besiktas, 1-0. And in the athletics, Johnson Thompson. Fantastic performance to win the heptathlon. We'll be going into more detail on that. Let's hear from Johnson Thompson, who was unsurprisingly in shock at her achievement.
No, it doesn't make sense to me, honestly. These whole 2 days have just been, because they've been so fast and it's been at night time, it's actually felt like a dream, and the lights and everything has just been unbelievable, and I can't believe this is the result. It's just been so many attempts at trying to perform on this stage. I'm just so happy.
That was, of course, Johnson Thompson, who did win the heptathlon. Fantastic amount of points that she amassed in her performance. Just touching on some of the other top stories this morning as well. Millwall have parted company with manager Neil Harris in quite a surprising move, which now makes Lee Johnson of Bristol City the longest-serving manager in the Championship. I am here with Patrick Christys. I'm also here with producer Kieran, who I will bring in for the first time this morning. Morning, Kieran.
Good morning, Rich. How are we?
Good morning. Yeah, very well. I want to get your take on Johnson Thompson, because I know there's a lot of it in the papers today.
Absolutely.
Of course, we were speaking a lot about athletics yesterday. This is a big story, a very positive story.
Yeah, massively positive. And she's banished the mental demons that she had as a youngster. So as a 19-year-old, she was there at the London 2012 Olympics, kind of as the sort of lady in waiting. Jess Ennis-Hill was taking all the medals and all the plaudits, and Johnson Thompson, she clearly had the required attributes to win gold medals at this sort of level. But in the last Olympics and in the last World Championships in 2015, in some of her favourite events, notably in the 2015 Worlds, she got disqualified from the long jump for three foul jumps, and that ruined her chances. Of course, if you mess up in any of the events with fouls or anything like that and fail to put a score in, then that's it. That's your medal chances gone. So that's kind of the risk you take in heptathlon, and to be so consistent at that high level is amazing. And to beat Jess Ennis-Hill's British record. Jess Ennis-Hill, probably if you went round, if I went onto Southwark Street right now, everyone would know who Jess Ennis-Hill is, right? That shows just how good an achievement this is from Katerina Johnson Thompson. She's one of our best athletes in recent memory.
Yeah, there you go, Patrick.
Yes, no, she really is, actually. But I just want to kind of talk a little bit about some of the wider issues embroiling athletics at the moment.
We're going to touch on Nike, aren't we?
We are, very much so. And it raised the question, in light of everything that's come out about the whole Salazar case regarding, he's been banned for 4 years, of course. He fronted up the Nike Oregon project, trained Mo Farah for 7 years, a lot of other top athletes. And he was banned over drug violations, okay? These involve things like testosterone, intravenous drips, transfusions, and the transportation of banned substances around the world, basically. Now, it's called by Matt Dickinson in the Times today, and it's a good piece, this, about whether or not we should boycott Nike. And the headline is, swoosh, that's the sound of Nike brushing aside another scandal. And there is serious questions here about whether or not we should just be boycotting Nike. Not just for the obvious reasons either. I'm going to go into this. I do occasionally put a little bit of work in, Rich, and I've been doing some digging into Nike's track record. Now, just to deal with the issue at hand first, which is the raw kind of doping element to this, clearly illegal, shouldn't be happening, and it goes beyond all common sense to think that a major corporation would not have known the extent to which Salazar was operating. Salazar's testings of banned substances involved things undergone in laboratories and things like that, and those things don't just pop up, they don't occur, and who's paying for them? You know, it's not like Salazar's dipping into his own back pocket and going, I'm just going to rent out this laboratory, by the way, you can't come in. You know, it just suspends all common sense to think that there's no way that Nike would have known that these kind of tests involving things like testosterone gel, testosterone cream, like I've mentioned there about the transfusions, and the substance L-carnitine as well, which turns fat into energy. It goes beyond all reasonable doubt whatsoever that Nike must have known about this. Now, Nike just kind of want to just brush this scandal aside, and I think we shouldn't let them. I think we should boycott Nike. But it goes deeper than this, actually. Nike is a brand that teamed up with Colin Kaepernick, the American football player who took a knee during the national anthem. And Nike used his face very publicly in an advertising campaign. And they did that to try and show that they were very woke and that they were really kind of, up to date with current affairs and this lovely, fluffy brand. But it's a tissue of lies. It absolutely is. And actually, I think Colin Kaepernick has been used here. And this is a technique that a lot of people do in life. And you could argue that the royal family are doing a little bit at the moment with Prince Harry, where they talk about things like their anxiety and things like this. There's a way, I think, to try and they use phrases like bullying to try and just put up this shield or to stop any kind of criticism, basically, that's happening. And Nike are doing the same thing with that, and I think that was really wrong. But I've done a bit of digging into Nike's actual factories, right? So it's not just the fact that their brand, in the case of Alberto Salazar, is literally tattooed on a drug cheat's arm, okay? You look beyond that as well. So in a lot of Nike factories, there's been huge protests about them, including massive sit-ins and protests right around the world about the working conditions of people in Nike factories. And there's a statement here, right, where the findings of factory investigations show that supervisors often overstep their duties. Women represent a large proportion of factory employees. Approximately 75 to 80% of workers are women, and the majority of those are in their teens. Factory jobs may require women to work long hours, ranging from 13 hours per day, 6 days a week, and they are often forced to work overtime. Although there are more women employed at the factories, they represent the minority of the higher paid supervisor positions. Okay, fine. But the implication here, and this is what's been well known really about Nike, and you can find all of these things online, they're all really well sourced, is the horrific experiences that people have working in these Nike factories for very little money, with no workers' rights. And there's even an insinuation here, an insinuation that Nike strenuously denies, about the fact that supervisors at these factories pay off government officials so that they don't have to investigate working conditions. So it paints this picture, doesn't it, of a brand here that is public portrayal is one of equality and fairness and goodness and being very woke and up to date with modern culture. But the actual reality going on behind the scenes is that there's a multi-billion-pound operation going on in Oregon there that is essentially a factory for getting performance-enhancing drugs through and into athletes undetected at the top level and lying to the world about how good they are, based on and built on and founded on factories with essentially slave-like conditions. And if that isn't a brand that you should boycott, then I don't know what is.
There you go. What do you guys think? As always, 0208 70 20 558 on the WhatsApp. I guess on a more positive note, because there has been a lot of positive stories in athletics over the last couple of days, certainly on the back of the Salazar news that we were discussing in depth a few days ago. We have had a couple of more positive days. I guess, though, this is the issue, right, as we spoke about it a lot, is for all the positivity that we've had over the last couple of days, there is a bit of a cloud over athletics at the moment, isn't there?
Well, this is it. And the fact is as well, if you like to see Paula Radcliffe, who's come out and just not really bothered to condemn a lot of the drugs allegations, and your Seb Coes of this world, you have absolute superstars in Dina Asher-Smith, the girl that won the 200 metres World Championships. Incredible story. Katerina Thompson smashing all kinds of records on way to heptathlon glory. The fact is that unless Seb Coe or Paula Radcliffe or these figures like Mo Farah come out and root this out of the sport, these glorious achievements by these people are always going to be shadowed in the kind of with the backdrop of drugs, cheats and this kind of stuff. And that's not fair on these poor people who are actually world-class athletes who dedicate their lives to it, you know?
Yeah, well, just on Thompson, she has moved to France since the last Olympics, and she said the change of approach has benefited her.
So I've got my coach to thank for that, obviously, and my training. My two coaches in France, they have so much belief in me, and they've given me a lot of confidence the last couple of years. And I believe that I can compete on this level. My body is healthy as well. I've not had any injuries this year, so that's definitely helped. And I've had a great lead-in, so that's the outcome of it.
So obviously a change in circumstances, a change of approach. I guess the question is, can a change of approach reverse fortunes or change fortunes? Mo Farah moved his family to America before his big successes.
Yeah, slightly different setup that one, I think, wasn't it? Yeah.
He had an excellent coach.
He had a coach who kept dishing up startling results. It's fair to say. But look, I think with Katerina Thompson, the thing is with her was, she looked as though, which is perfectly understandable, by the way. She looked as though she struggled on the big stage previously at Olympics, and she did underperform. And you could see the look in her eye, and it was like someone who just couldn't quite work out why they were only operating at 80% when they know what they're capable of. And I wonder actually whether we've dug out the whole Doha setup there for basically being an empty stadium. But I wonder whether or not this actually really helped her, because there was essentially nobody there. It was at night under floodlights, and so she's come out and said it felt like a dream. And I think that was it. It bizarrely provided the exact set of circumstances for her where she could just shut everything out and just do, perform as she would on the training ground, which I think is fantastic, really.
Yeah, no, it is indeed. It is indeed. I want to go back to a little bit of football as well. For those that haven't heard, Neil Harris has left Millwall, which makes Lee Johnson now, Bristol City, the longest-serving championship manager.
Wow.
There you go. Which, by the way, he hasn't been there that long. I'm going to find out exactly how long. It must have been maybe 4 or 5 years now, top. But it just shows you the turnaround in managers is, I mean, it's getting worse or it's getting shorter, certainly.
Yeah, well, it is. It's getting a little bit ridiculous, isn't it? Like, at what point do you end up with clubs just relentlessly appointing managers who have done averagely elsewhere and got sacked, and then they do averagely there and get sacked, and just this merry-go-round, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's at what point do you decide to park? Interestingly, Nathan Jones, Stoke, he is still in a post as it stands, which certainly a lot of people might have thought he might have gone now. Another one
that's weird,
who is still in a post is, of course, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And things are really improving there. Good 0-0 draw away at AZ Alkmaar
on a bad
night.
pitch.
On a bad pitch, went away, got a draw.
Denied a Stonewall penalty.
They were, which is given 101 out of 100 times.
Yeah. Some stuff on Solskjaer there. It's got depressing. I did say to my friends last night, I'm in an Arsenal WhatsApp group.
Why are you in an Arsenal WhatsApp
All
group?
my girlfriend's family are Arsenal fans, and they've added me in, which was for a while great. Now, terrible. I just made the point last night. I was like, we're basically Everton.
Yeah. Patrick Christys has left the group.
Yes.
8:15.
Want to know how I change a light bulb? I hold the bulb and I wait for the world to revolve around me.
This is Love Sport.
You all right, mate? Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it, sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Stop paying too much for your energy bills. Brian saved money on his at spokesmansaid.com. Can you?
I'm Brian from Swaddling-Cote, South Derbyshire, and I saved about £400 on my energy bill with a Spokesman Said. The iSpokesman Said website was very easy to use, and the money I saved I put towards a holiday.
Compare home energy quotes from the UK's biggest suppliers in just a matter of minutes with spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit wedooh.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
My mum and dad say that I don't need lots of sugar. I'm sweet enough already. So we used the Change for Life food scanner app to find out how much sugar is in our food and drink. It's surprising how much we found. So I put my detective hat on to find the healthier choices. Woohoo! Found one, Mum! You can be food smart too. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app today.
Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys. We're here with you until 10 a.m. We've been talking a lot of Europa League. Of course, it wasn't a particularly good night for Manchester United last night. 0-0 draw away at AZ Alkmaar. A much better night for Wolves. They beat Besiktas 1-0. A 93rd minute winner. And of course, it was an excellent night for Arsenal. Their youngsters beat Standard Liège 4-0. We're going to be talking to Louis Langton very shortly on this particular subject. Just on Arsenal, Patrick, Martinelli in particular, the goals last night, the fact that the performance he put in against Nottingham Forest beforehand as well last night, the fact that he was on trial at Manchester United. How does that make you feel as a Manchester United fan?
Oh, well, no, look, I mean, we've had such decisions like dictating that Johnny Evans was better than Gerard Piqué. Such decisions as buying Bebe for £8 million. So this is par for the course, really.
It is.
Also, Mason Greenwood's a fantastic natural finisher. So, I mean, look, what's Martinelli got that Mason Greenwood hasn't got apart from a brace in a European competition?
And a fantastic assist as well.
Yeah,
well, I'm pleased we can discuss this with Louis Langton, is now former chair of Arsenal Independent Support Association. Morning, Louis.
Or morning, Lois, even.
Oh, Lois,
I'll forgive you for mispronouncing it.
Apologies, my bad, apologies. Look, want to talk about this last week. We've got to start with Martinelli because he was absolutely superb. The 2 goals well taken. For me, even more so, the assist on the 4th.
I agree. I mean, he seems, from what we've seen so far, to be blessed with everything. He's technically very good. He's full of energy. He doesn't stop working. Even in the dying minutes of the match, he's still scampering around, chasing every ball down, and he's got that kind of South American Brazilian grit that even when he was fouled at the end, he's straight up and still running around again. They have this ability to seem to be able to ride tackles.
Yeah, it's sensational. And look, it must be a really real positive in a season that has been a breakout season for youngsters so far in the Premier League and arguably across Europe as well, actually. The Arsenal are right there at the forefront of it.
It's a real positive. I think supporters love to see young players coming through who've been with the academy, in the case of all the English boys coming through with Arsenal, and then a smattering of talented foreign youth in the side as well. It's something that the crowd can really get behind and enjoy watching players develop.
Want to touch on Willock and Nelson. Of course, they've had a lot of Premier League minutes so far, a lot made of both. And again, both looked very, very good last night. Again, 2 players that will be wanting to ideally rack up a good number of games this season.
I think we definitely hope so. As we've just said, there's some really, really promising talent coming through, and it's refreshing to see them being given that opportunity, and they certainly are getting those opportunities this season.
Do you think it goes a little bit to pointing at maybe why in the past Arsenal have been a little bit reluctant to spend big in the transfer market, because perhaps there's been this kind of grand plan all along where they know this conveyor belt of talent that they've got coming through, and actually they don't feel the need to go out and splash the cash, in a way that Manchester United have done, frankly, with not great effect?
I mean, I think you can certainly say that in the last couple of years. I'm not sure how far we can extend that excuse back. We did have for many years the promise of jam tomorrow.
Yeah.
I think this, despite the kind of myth that Arsenal have over the last few years been seen as a club that encourages youth, we've not actually really seen that. Certainly in the past, George Graham days and before that, youth was certainly given its opportunity. There was always this idea that Arsene Wenger really encouraged youth. But if you think about the number of players that came through our academy system into the first team, you're counting the players on one hand. Ashley Cole, Jack Wilshere, Kieran Gibbs. Yes, there were talented young players such as Cesc Fabregas who broke into the first team, but they joined us at 16.
Yeah.
I don't count those as academy products. This is the first time in many years that we've seen so many academy players being given the opportunity at the same time, and I really do hope that they can all come through together, because when they've played together for so long and they're friends, that gives you an added bonus as well as the talent that they have.
Yeah, definitely. It's worth pointing out, at 18 years and 107 days, Gabriel Martinelli is the youngest player to score 2 or more goals for Arsenal in a major European match. Do you reckon that the world has moved on around Mesut Ozil? Because the guy clearly is capable of being a world-class footballer and does show glimpses of it. But these kids, and they are kids, are coming through with, it looks to me anyway, a little bit more effort, a little bit more application, and potentially as well the promise of frankly being just as good.
I don't buy into the Mesut Ozil not putting the effort in. He's got a language style, and everyone's got their own style of play. So I think it's unfair to criticise him for that. But clearly, there is a problem. He's our highest paid player. He's a World Cup winner, and yet he's not in the side. But that's up to Unai Emery, and I credit him with being able to make those decisions. We had too many years of players playing because of who they were, and irrespective of their performances, and that was a huge criticism that was directed at Arsene Wenger for so many years. So the fact that Unai Emery feels enabled to make the decisions based on what he's seeing on the training ground, because quite frankly it's hard for supporters and the media to say who should be playing because we're not really seeing Mesut Ozil playing. So it's obviously being based on what's happening on the training pitch, and we're not privy to what Unai Emery's seeing.
Another couple of positives, obviously Bellerin back from injury, Tierney as well. Also Martinez was in goal last night. He did pretty well, didn't he?
He did. He's been with us for a long time and has been very loyal and patient in waiting for his chance. So again, I think it's really positive to see that he's now being given the role of number 2, and he has played extremely well in the performances he's had so far this season, as has the defence. That defence clean sheets, yes, Standard Liège were pretty woeful, but as the cliche goes, you can only beat what's put in front of you. And I think our defence largely went unnoticed, and that's encouraging. You don't really want to see your central defenders standing out, because that normally means that they're having too much of the ball. I think it was a really competent, calm display across defence.
Yeah, it was. Well, that first half an hour in particular was electric, I thought, from what I saw. A quick one on Granit Xhaka, because a lot being made of him having the captain's armband. Your thoughts on that?
I really have never heard so much nonsense over a manager's decision with a captain. He clearly has the backing of the manager. He's clearly got the backing of the other players, and I really find it incredible that there is so much time committed to talking about whether or not he should be playing when there's so many other positives to be focusing on.
Yeah, great stuff. Lois, really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you very much.
That's great stuff. Lois Langton there, former chair of Arsenal Independent Supporters Association, giving her thoughts on Arsenal's 4-0 win yesterday against Standard Liège.
Yes, now I just want to whiz through some stories that you may not have seen today. Ryan Giggs accepts that he will be criticised for selecting Tom Lawrence for, quote, football reasons. This is despite the Derby player being involved in a drink-drive crash with his Range Rover Sport last week. We all saw this story, of course. Him and Mason Bennett were... it appeared anyway, at least with various players at Derby to be on a night out. Of course, a team night out. Ryan Giggs has now picked him in the wake of this particular scandal. He says he'll get criticism for it, football reasons. It does raise the question whether or not indeed these players should be playing, but I suppose it's innocent until proven guilty. Also, safe standing is going to be delayed until 2021 at the earliest. Any change to the law banning standing areas at Premier League grounds will be delayed until at least the 2021-2022 season, after an independent review said that more evidence was needed. As a player, Rich, do you think the atmosphere is impacted by having seating as opposed to safe standing?
Yeah. I think the idea of safe standing, I understand why we've gone to the all-seater, and there always used to, I suppose, the perfectionist part of me, the idea of suddenly, like for Old Trafford, they spoke about it a lot, suddenly turning part of the seating into standing. There's almost something that doesn't quite work mentally more than anything. But actually, obviously, I played at Griffin Park for a long period of time, which I had terraces behind where I played. I noticed that going from Watford, which was a much bigger crowd, we had 12 to 15,000 pretty much every game, to suddenly going to Brentford, which at the time was about 5,000 we were getting back then, yet the atmosphere was so much louder playing in front of the terraces at Brentford than it was playing in front of the seated arrangement at Watford. So no, I love the idea of safe standing.
I think as well, so like I don't get to go to too many United games now, but when I do, I'm obviously really excited to be there. It's less so now, actually, to be fair, but really excited to be at Old Trafford. And then I remember standing up when the whistle went, and I was just there I was just excited. I didn't even really realise that I was particularly stood up, to be honest with you. And then I get a load of shouts from behind, oh, sit down. And you think, actually, let's just have standing. It's better.
This is it. I think you've got different types of supporters. You've got the families that go, of course, and they want to sit with the kids and watch the game. So there is, of course, a section for them. And I know they tried to do this anyway, but the point is, there are a lot of people that want to be there, high energy. Yeah. They want to be stood up. They want to be screaming, shouting, singing. And so it is effectively the mosh pit. That's what you need. Yeah. You need the standing there for those people, because you're right. Otherwise, you do get the ones that are sat down that are going to be annoyed with the ones that are stood up. Similarly, the ones that are stood up that are annoyed with the ones that are sat down. So, look, for me, it's something that should happen. I mean, the fact it's been delayed obviously will be a little bit frustrating for certain teams. And also, again, it's going to increase the capacity slightly, you would think. I know I've read somewhere that actually it might not, but you would think that if there's standing, you could increase the capacity slightly. Maybe it would mean slightly cheaper tickets as well, potentially. Yeah. I don't know. But I mean, look, there's a lot to this. I certainly think that they should introduce it. I want to come back to the academy products. I want to talk a bit. We're talking a bit about Arsenal there in particular, and the fact that there's so many young players that are coming through, and so many young players that are doing brilliantly. Of course, we spoke on Reece Nelson, Willock. What's happening at the moment? The amount of young academy products that are finding their way into the English Premier League. Do you think this is just coincidence, or is this the case of, and the fact that like the Chelseas of this world, the transfer window, etc., or has this been in the making for the last 10 years or so with the introduction of academies, whenever that was? Must have been about 10 years ago, I would guess, maybe a bit longer, but maybe it is that's finally coming to fruition?
I know that the FA have put a lot of work in at the grassroots level, and they wanted to change the culture. And actually, by the way, Gareth Southgate was right at the forefront of that, because he started working through with a lot of the youth groups in the England setup. And that's the way they wanted to go about it. They wanted to mirror what was going on in places like Spain in particular, where they have a certain style that is enforced among players right across the board, both at youth international level and at youth club level. And I think now that England, the national team, is more in sync in terms of the style of play with our continental friends, but also with Premier League clubs, because Premier League clubs now want to play out from the back a lot more. We're seeing it with this rule change, of course, where goalkeepers can pass to defenders in the area from a goal kick. We're seeing that a lot more. And for the first time, or for the last few years, I suppose, we've had an alignment between that and the way that we are coaching our players in the England setup. And therefore, they're more ready to break into a Premier League team. And they're also more ready to do it on the national stage as well. But I do think as well that the idea for a lot of English players of ever going and playing abroad before seemed just nuts.
Yeah.
You know, why would you go and do that? But now, again, it is more common. And we've seen it with Jadon Sancho. So they're getting game time at good clubs all around the world, great international experience there, and then they are ready when they come into the Premier League side. Also, sorry, Rich, just lastly, I think a lot of work is being done with mental health and psychology and sports psychology. And so you end up with players who maybe perhaps previously will be overawed by a situation, are less so now, and they just can't express themselves.
I think it's a good point. I think as well with Europe, what's ended up happening, which probably goes against Brexit to an extent, but is that it's got smaller, especially with data now. Like teams from around the world can see how the young English players are doing. So they're not hidden anymore. Even if they're playing under 23s football or they're on loan in League One, a lot of these European clubs are looking. I mean, I had a meeting with Opta the other day, and it was fascinating because effectively you can find teams around the world that suit your style of play. So what that means is if you're looking for a specific type of player, rather than bringing in a player, a great example of a bad example will be Alexis Sanchez, where you bring a player into an environment that does not make sense because you're playing him in a completely different position, maybe, in a style of football that is alien to him, where you can turn a very, very good player into a very average player. So a lot of these teams now, what they're doing is they're finding teams around the world that play a similar style to them. So if they are looking for a specific position, they might find it from a team in League One who ends up going to Holland because he actually fits that particular position and has the attributes needed for that particular team.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the data element of it, 100%. But also, I just wonder as well if it goes even deeper than that, which is that I wonder how many world-class players have just slipped through the net over the years and are now just something like a painter decorator or like a plumber. And I think that happens less often now because of the amount of stats and the amount of physical attributes that people go off. It's not just singularly about, oh, well, he looks like a striker or he looks like a defender. He's seen so much more detail now.
Well, this is it. I mean, I only played 11 games in the Premier League.
Well, and that's it's a travesty, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's a crying shame.
Crying shame.
But you had what's known as arguably the best role at any football club, isn't it? It's the Lee Grant role, isn't it?
Well, I was number 2, not number 3.
No, fair enough.
Lee Grant's something, yeah.
But you were on the bench.
For a large period of time.
For a large period of time, which is good, isn't it? Because you get all the trappings of being a football player. You get an appearance fee as a goalkeeper just for sitting on the bench.
That's true.
You know, surrounded by other footballers all day, and I suppose that's a negative, but you came through that really well. And obviously the money's not bad and everything, but actually there's very little pressure on you.
You make a really good point.
Brilliant.
If you want to be a number 2 goalkeeper, get in touch. 0208 70 20 558. I can guide you personally. Someone who isn't getting enough minutes is Phil Foden. Southgate was asked about the City midfielder yesterday.
Clearly difficult to assess exactly where Phil sits compared to others, given the opportunities at his club, which I totally understand because of the quality of players he's up against. He's still progressing well. He's learning from one of the best coaches in the world, and his time will come.
I believe you have a theory.
Yeah, he's not playing because he's called Phil.
Oh, go on.
Yep. So if it wasn't Phil Foden, if it was Philippe Fodelini,
Okay.
He'd be starting now for City every single week because he's good enough. But the fact is, I think there's a little bit of a stigma still attached around this young working class lad who enjoys carp fishing around the Stockport area.
Do you think you've got the same thing? Like, we've both got the same thing. Richard Lee, it's a bit dull. Patrick
Everyone
Christys.
called Richard Lee is Chinese.
Yeah, that's true.
If you Google your name if you seriously, so I've done this, if you
Yeah.
Google your name, right, and just put images in, it is a very successful people, by the way. One of them's in Forbes.
Yeah.
But they are, and you have to scroll down to about page 3 before you get your face.
Yeah, it's true. And there's actually one above me who's an axe murderer. That's true.
Really?
Yeah, he's obviously made a few more headlines than I did.
I did, to be fair.
Over the years. So, Patrick Christys, if it was Patricio Cristinio, do you think that your career might have advanced that little bit further?
Well, I thought that as well, but one of them was actually a mass shooter, and he's just got all the headlines. So, I know, not for me personally, obviously, but I do think it's the same with Eddie Howe, Eduardo Housini. He'd be in line for the Juventus job. He'd be managing Real Madrid.
What would Sean Dyche be?
Sean Dyche. Because the thing is, though, when I tried to come up with something else, you just picture the man. Yeah. You can't come up with anything.
Can't get past that.
You
Can't get past that. He will say Sean Dyche. 26 minutes to 9.
Love Sport. Listen to Love Sport Radio on your smartphone today. Simply download the free Love Sport app from the App Store or Google Play. Tap the play button and you'll be able to listen to your favourite station. Anytime, anywhere. Love Sport Radio. The station giving fans a voice. Are you paying too much for your car and home insurance? A Spokesman Said is the price comparison site that offers the best deals on the market for your energy and insurance. Go to aspokesmansaid.com and you could be reducing your bills in minutes.
With aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Can you save money on your car insurance? Chris did, with a little help from aspokesmansaid.com. Getting real people, real savings.
I'm Chris from Leicestershire, a truck driver. I went on a Spokesman Said, which was very straightforward and easy to use for an old git like myself, and saved over £300 on my car insurance.
Find quotes from over 100 leading insurance providers at aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit wedooh.com. We Do, the smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Driving too close to the car in front gives you less time to react. You may not realise that you're tailgating. Leave a 2-second gap between you and the vehicle in front. When it's wet, leave a 4-second gap. By staying back, you give yourself time to react. Stay safe. Stay back. Highways England, connecting the country.
This is Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys. Well, we had some fun there, didn't we, Patrick?
So I Googled your name, Rich, again, and I found some fantastic headlines. Arrogant murderer Richard Lee jailed for life for a murder which broke a family's heart.
Yeah, it turns out that there's a lot of Richard Lees in this world that have done a lot of bad things.
Richard Lee's chilling 3-word threat to his ex's dad was turned into prophecy.
That was actually me, but there's some really bad things out there for
Murder accused Richard Lee say stabbing victim's death was a terrible accident. Anyway,
you're
a bad man.
Richard Lee's a bad man, apparently. That's it. You should never trust someone with 2 first names.
That's very true, isn't it?
Very true. I want to talk a little bit more Manchester United, if that's okay with you. I know we've been trying to avoid it today, haven't we? It was a bad night last night. As much as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer thought it was not so bad, and a draw away at AZ Alkmaar.
Yeah.
In fact, he addressed the fact that his side have not won away in 10 games.
We are a team that can be set up well to play away from home. Sometimes you can play on the counter. Today we didn't really get the counter-attacks as we wanted to because AstroTurf on a pitch like this, it's you attack, we attack. It's handball.
It's handball.
Yeah. Oh God, I'm getting a bit sick of this. Like, what won't Ole Gunnar Solskjaer defend? Do you know what I mean? Like, what calibre of performance would have to be put in before Ole Gunnar Solskjaer just comes out and goes, "Yeah, sorry, that was shocking."
Do you know what? And I get the whole spinning the media and trying to find positive. Look, Pep Guardiola, for me, for instance, got a very simple method whereby if they win 5 or 6-0, he talks of complacency and how they need to be switched on. They lose 1-0, and he absolutely loves his team. And it's a big loving when they lose 1-0. And it's a very simple psychology, but I see what he's doing. With Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, the problem is that it has now been too many. 10 away games without a win. You made an interesting fact that Bury have won away more recently than Manchester United have. And
Bury don't exist anymore.
No, it's Manchester United. 10 games without a win. It doesn't matter. Away at home doesn't matter.
So you're a player, right? And your manager comes out before a game and goes, "Oh, this pitch is just shocking. I can't believe that we're playing on this pitch." What impact does that have on you?
Of course, it gives. Obviously, it's almost like you're looking for a ready-made excuse, which you should take that out of the equation. It should be a case of course, look, it wasn't ideal. You could see that from the pictures. However, if you have better players than they do, which United should, I mean, the wage would be probably 30, 40 times what AZ Alkmaar would be. Certainly the amount spent on the squad is probably best part of 100 times, certainly 50 times. So they should go there and win that game very comfortably, really. And I think maybe there needs to be a little bit more honesty when he comes out. Look, do you know what has changed with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? You think of when he was caretaker manager and there was almost an air of he felt like he was the luckiest man in the world. You know, he was talking after every game, and it was quite refreshing at the time because we had Jose Mourinho who heard there was a bit of a dark cloud hanging over Man United. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer comes in. It was like he'd won the lottery, and the way in which he spoke about his team so glowingly, and then something did shift. All of a sudden, a couple of the results went the other way, and something did shift with his persona.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out as well that the United fans, and this has been pointed out saying a lot of the press, were chanting from the terraces. The Manchester United have a fabulous international sports fan base as well. The Cheadle-Hulme Reds were there, the Maltese Reds as well, and the Redditch Reds. And they were in good voice. But the problem is they're singing songs about Eric Cantona, about Roy Keane, about George Best, about Andy Cole. They're not singing about any of this United team, at all. And I imagine the shouts of Ollie's at the wheel have gone down a little bit. So Rio Ferdinand, Rio.
Of course.
Yeah, good lad. Now, Rio Ferdinand is, was a fabulous defender, of course. That old phrase, a Rolls Royce of a defender. He's not necessarily the best at punditry, though. And should I just remind you all of this little clip that Rio Ferdinand said, I believe, in the wake of Manchester United beating PSG away. By the way, that was their last away win.
Oh, listen, all you've got to do, Man United might not thank me, but get the contract out, put it on the table, let him sign it, let him write whatever numbers he wants to put on there, give him what he's done now since he's come in, and let him sign the contract and go. Ollie's at the wheel, man, he's doing it, he's doing his thing. Man United are back.
That should have been the closing. I should have let.
So there we are. Yeah. Man United are back.
But do you know what? Look, I don't know. We all got carried away with it, didn't we, at the time? They had that fantastic run. And I've said this before, but I'll say it again. I think for some managers, they'll look at this and, in a weird way, be quite happy that he hasn't made it look that easy. Because, look, being a manager, the amount of experience that you do need to learn the ups and downs. And, by the way, Frank Lampard's doing a really good job of it at Chelsea, it has to be said. But there is so much that you learn becoming a manager, because the man management side of things, the tactical side of things, knowing when to make substitutions, what substitutions, seeing the pattern of a game and knowing how you can change it. It's a game of chess. So I guess initially he made it look so easy. Now he's going through that learning period. The question United have is, do they allow him to learn on the job? Do they give him this season to learn what he needs to learn? Because realistically, I know Michael Owen's come out and said they're not going to finish top 6. I agree with that. I think most people would, looking at this current United team, unless they bring in somebody in January. And you know what? It's not even about bringing someone in. It's a cultural shift, because I think we're seeing it. Top players are coming into that environment and it's not working. Look, it's not like they haven't brought in the talent. They've brought in a lot of talent. It's not working. I think they need to have a cultural shift.
Do you reckon Ole Gunnar Solskjaer cares? He's going to walk away from this a multi-millionaire.
No, he does. I mean, look, that's one thing I don't think you'd ever label against him. He is United through and through. And it means so much. You can see his frustration, even if he's trying to put on a certain front in the media, which I get. and he's trying to paint a positive picture. You look at him on the sideline and he is upset that it's not working out as he would want. And I think that's an important point. And one of the reasons that he will get longer than most people is that United fans do love him. Like, they don't forget what he's done for the club. And it's not that it's a lack of willingness. And he's saying a lot of the right things as well. But the problem is the culture hasn't quite shifted yet.
How long can a club be deemed to be in transition for before they're just bang average?
Well, do you know what? Let's use Liverpool as an example. Now, they won the league year in, year out back in the 80s. And how long did it take them to do that? They sunk, by the way, and they were very, very average for a period of time. It's only now, really, that they are now genuine contenders for the title. Still haven't won the title, by the way, but genuine contenders again. How long has that taken? The shift of when things start to go wrong, first and foremost, you have to stem the flow. Then you have to reverse it, and you have to find a way to build again. And I go back to my initial point, and this is where it might be they have to gut the team completely to create that new culture. And it might be like they've done to an extent, but certainly not enough, with the likes of Daniel James coming in, with the likes of Harry Maguire, bringing in the right characters first and foremost. And then it might be some of those younger stars who are 2 or 3 years away from their peak, because this is the other issue, is that United being where they are, they're not going to attract the top talent. They're not in the Champions League. So suddenly they're missing out on players that used to be bread and butter for them 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, look, it's just absolutely nuts. There are some positives, to be fair, which is that, a lot of young talent is being blooded, but you just have to look at it and go, is it as good as Chelsea's? Is it as good as Phil Foden at City? Is it as good as some likes of Joe Gomez that we're seeing come through, Trent Alexander-Arnold and all that lot? No, they're absolutely not at all.
No. Well, let's hear from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who tried to find the positives from last night.
You create chances and you don't score goals. There's no point me saying he should have hit the target there when he gets that chance. They know themselves. And today I'm pleased with the boys. The performance, the debut of Brandon, fantastic. You can't see any nerves. He's so brave, the courage to take the ball, go forward, great defending. Very pleased. So big pluses today.
And I guess that's the point. He's trying to find the positives, and you can almost hear in his tone of voice, as much as the words that are coming out are positive, there is a sigh, as he's saying a lot of this stuff, it feels.
It's a little bit, isn't it? Like, when we went into Iraq and we didn't find any weapons of mass destruction, and you see the people there trying to spin it, and they go, "Oh, well, but we've liberated the people." It's like, yeah, but you didn't find any of those, did you? It's like, it's just nuts, isn't it? Like at the Somme, where loads of people died, and they go, "Oh yeah, but we gained 4.5 yards on that particular French cornfield." So it's brilliant. It's just like trying to spin it. He should get a job as a North Korean newsreader, shouldn't he? Where you can just see behind him pictures of abject poverty and just one person eating what looks suspiciously like a plastic orange, and he goes, "Look, no one's here's hungry. Everyone's fine. This is brilliant." It's just like that. It's just lies, isn't it?
14 minutes to 9.
I'm not a snob. I just don't want to be in the same car as my chauffeur.
Giving your team the coverage they deserve. Love Sport Radio.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Brexit will bring changes that affect businesses in many ways, particularly if you buy from EU suppliers, sell to EU customers, provide services to EU clients, and receive customer data from other businesses in the EU. Businesses need to prepare. Find out how at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
How are you? How are you really? Modern life can be busy, and sometimes it's easier to look after others before looking after yourself. But there's only one you. And making small changes to your lifestyle now could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. So take the first step to a healthier you with our free How Are You quiz. See how you score and get personalised tips and support. From how to eat a little healthier to turning a 10-minute walk into exercise. Just search One You.
You probably think you're pretty good at multitasking behind the wheel. I mean, you have to multitask to drive. So what's wrong with checking your phone? The thing is, your brain simply doesn't work. Even a quick look at the message, or firing off a quick reply, affects your concentration and makes you less able to react to hazards. If you use a mobile phone while driving, you're 4 times more likely to crash. Think. Put your phone away.
This is Love Sport.
Yeah, this has been my dream. Obviously, 7,000 points I've spoken about in the past as one of my main career goals, and the thing called Score Calculator, which adds up all the points. I've been doing different combinations of this for my entire life, and for the last year or so I've sort of chilled with the predictions, and I've just tried to compete, I've just tried to perform, I've just tried to beat myself, and I think I've found a formula that works, and I just want more.
Of course, Johnson Thompson, who won gold. She didn't actually hit 7,000 points, but of course, this for me comes back to a classic saying, Patrick. Aim for the moon and miss. What do you become?
What?
One of the stars.
Right.
Come on, I've told you this so many times.
Do you think I ever listen?
Well, I wish you did
When you
sometimes.
start-
Do you know how much it hurts my feelings?
Well, okay, all right.
Anyway, the point being is that she's been targeting 7,000 points, and she touched on it there, the different combinations. Now, she didn't hit 7,000 points, but she was just shy, which was more than good enough for a gold medal, and actually puts her very much among the greats. There was a comparison
so.
with the likes of Ennis Hill and other people where she's better.
Yeah,
in a lot of different.
She is better. So she managed to get, Katerina Johnson-Thompson managed to amass 6,981 points, right? Denise Lewis, who was, of course, an absolute Olympic and world legend, she managed her highest. I'm just looking through the record books here. Her highest was 6,584 points. So there's obviously a big difference there. Jessica Ennis-Hill, just an institution. Her highest was 6,823. So Katerina Johnson-Thompson has smashed all British records. Fantastic stuff.
Do you think Johnson-Thompson, do you think she's referred to as JT?
KJT. No,
KJT.
seriously, yeah, KJT is what she goes by.
Yeah, not just JT, because then there might be a bit of confusion with the Chelsea legend.
Yeah. No, and you wouldn't want that. You wouldn't want
a lot of similarities between the two.
Although he also tried out a few different things at one time, didn't he?
Like in the heptathlon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of different things at the same time. It's quite hard to juggle that many.
Oh, really hard.
Events.
Really hard. It's a skill, actually, in itself, isn't it? He was known to be chronically indecisive, wasn't he?
Yeah, indeed. I want to talk a bit of athletics. So, of course, it was a very positive night for Johnson Thompson. Nike have come under fire.
Yes, big time. So I am calling for everyone to boycott Nike.
Okay.
Boycott it. So we've seen the Salazar scandal. Now, this is by no means the first scandal that Nike have been involved in, but I just want to run through an article actually from Matt Dickinson, who's the chief sports writer at the Times, and it just starts by saying the notion that there will be repercussions for Nike over its patronage and protection of Alberto Salazar, who was of course banned for 4 years for doping violations, former coach of Mo Farah for 7 years, fronted up the Nike Oregon project. We all know who this geezer is. He's even got a Nike tick tattooed on his arm, actually. It says now that his hugely influential coach has been banned for 4 years over serious doping offences, is mocked by one glance inside my cupboard at home. Is there any pair of swoosh-bearing shoes or boots that my sons don't own? And this is the point, right? Which is that Nike is such a big global brand now that is there any kind of scandal that could bring it down? And they have a marketing budget, an advertising budget, and a PR budget of, what, billions, isn't it? So any kind of scandal, there's no thing that Nike wouldn't back themselves to either cover up, as I don't mind saying, they clearly tried to do with this because they funded Salazar's legal bill, so it goes without saying Nike didn't want this to come out, or move on from. And they do it in ways like doing very woke adverts. So Colin Kaepernick, the NFL football player who took a knee during the national anthem, as is entirely his right to do, by the way, and if that's the way, well, obviously is the way he feels, then crack on, make your statement. Cool, not passing comment on that. But Nike use him as the very public face of their company. So what they're trying to do there is clearly align themselves with this guy and make it so that no one can criticise them because, oh, look how lovely we are as a brand. But the whole time that's going on, right under Nike's nose, and in fact you'd have to say, given that Nike fund the Oregon project, and at the Oregon project there were things like tests in laboratories for testosterone and L-carnitine and blood transfusions, all this kind of jazz that was going on there. You would have to say that Nike kind of directly or indirectly, Nike must have been helping in the funding of this because that's where their base is, right? So it has to be, okay? They had a coach there with a known dodgy track record for doping, and they allowed him to look after all their athletes. So Nike have been complicit in all this. And at the same time, as well as doing that, as essentially running a global international cheating program that lies to the world about the calibre of their athletes, who is making the Nike products that you and I wear and that any of the listeners wear, just stop for a second and think where that's come from. And there have been numerous high-profile human rights reports into Nike's factories. They've been given the name sweatshops, of course. And these include things like mostly teenage girls being forced to work 13-hour days and then forced into overtime, and reports, which Nike strenuously deny, of supervisors at these factories actually paying off various government officials so they don't come in and look at the working conditions that are there. And in fact, as well, it is worth noting as well that it goes even a little bit deeper when it comes to Nike, because they have had issues where one of their chief execs wanted to donate to Oregon University £30 million. He wants to donate, and that was pulled out after the university decided that they actually wanted to run a course at that university that looked into slave labour in factories around the world, and he refused to donate his $30 million off the back of that. I mean, this is the kind of company that we're dealing with here. And look, in the age now where we all use paper straws instead of plastic ones, and people go vegan because of moral reasons, and you know, the royal family are launching a vegan fashion line for all this kind of stuff. We're looking at, no, don't fly around the world because it's bad for the environment. Well, why don't we not buy Nike stuff? Because it's terrible for loads of human beings.
You've made your point, Patrick. Let us know what you think. 0208 70 25 58 on the WhatsApp. Let's move back to a little bit of football, shall we? And should we talk about the England squad, which has been announced? There was a shock omission of Jesse Lingard. There was an inclusion for Tomori, which I do want to touch on. A couple of the big surprises, I guess, were Jesse Lingard and Dele Alli in particular, and Walker as well. Let's hear in regards to Lingard.
I think Jesse's had a difficult period, he's aware of that. I've got to retain huge faith in Jesse, because he's a player that's always played well for us. He's never let us down. His performance level for England's been excellent. Again, as an attacking midfield player, you are going to be judged on your goals and assists, and when you look at the likes of Sterling and Sancho and the other players I've already mentioned, those numbers are high currently. So it's a really high bar. You know, this isn't the competition is far greater than it was 12, 18 months ago, because we've pushed young players in early and given them opportunities, and those guys have flourished.
I guess with Jesse Lingard, the thing that Gareth Southgate doesn't know, of course, is that Jesse Lingard has had a vow of celibacy when it comes to goals and assists for 2019. So we're going to wait until 2020 and he will be back. Is this a surprise for you that he's not been called up?
No, it would have been an absolute shock.
Well, it was
if
December,
he was
wasn't it? It was
the squad.
December 2018 was the last time he scored. Which...
No, but this is it, isn't it? Like, we don't owe anyone anything. We don't owe Jesse Lingard anything. And as well, he's not helped himself. Like, this is the thing. I know that there may well be no correlation between Jesse Lingard launching a fashion brand and all this kind of stuff, and him doing these ridiculous dance moves and stuff like that in the changing rooms after a bang average victory or when he scores. There may be no correlation between that and, for example, going to Miami and releasing a bit of a weird video of what appears to be quite a boozy hotel room and stuff, and his performances, but it doesn't help. You can't help but think that maybe his focus isn't on the football.
The simple fact is, when things are going well, you can do what you want. Genuinely, you can do what you want. It's the moment that things aren't going well, then this is when we will look at things like that, because of course you could argue that the fact that he's at United, a team that are struggling, an environment that does not look particularly good, that could be the reason, because he has performed very well for England. Let's be honest, he has. Over the period of time, he's scored a lot of goals, assists, etc. So the question is then, if you're doing that well with England, is that enough to continue to get England call-ups? But of course it can't be, and this is where Gareth Southgate, to be fair to all of the English players, he has to be looking at them as to their club form. And unfortunately for Jesse Lingard, whether that's Man United's fault, whether it's his fault, whether it's the fact that he's got a clothing brand, it is what it is, and it's the right call. Again, let us know your thoughts. 0208 70 25 58, 3 minutes to 9.
This is Love Sport.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. This means that travelling to the EU will change. You'll need to check online if your passport is valid for travel to Europe. If you're planning on driving, you'll need to check if you have the right documents to drive. And make sure your travel insurance covers all your healthcare needs. To keep your trip on track, check what you need to do at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit wedooh.com. We Do, the smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel, and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
If you see somebody showing any of the signs of a stroke, you don't have to think about it, you just dial 999. Use the FAST test. F. Face. Has their face fallen on one side? Can they smile? A. Arms. Can they raise both arms and keep them there? S. Speech. Is their speech slurred? T. Time. Time to call 999 if you see any one of these signs. Act fast, make the call, dial 999.
Love Sport Breakfast, Love Sport Radio. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys. We're here with you for another hour or so to cap off what's been a fine week. As always, we're on online, digital radio, your Alexa smart speaker. As always, you can get in touch on WhatsApp, or you can give us a call, 0208 70 20 558, or on the socials at Love Sport Radio. The final hour, we got plenty to come. We're going to be speaking to Mick Martin, ex-Man United and Newcastle. Of course, Manchester United could only draw with AZ Alkmaar yesterday in the Europa League. Much more positive night for Wolves and Arsenal, both victorious, and of course a great night for Johnson Thompson in the Athletics. We'll also be speaking to Nick Friend from The Cricketer and Russ Milsom, Maul Over Rugby podcast. So lots to come. Do stay tuned. 9 o'clock.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 9. Authorities in Hong Kong have announced a ban on face masks to prevent protesters hiding their identity. It's the first time in more than 50 years the territory has invoked emergency powers. There have been 4 months of pro-democracy demos. Our reporter Siobhan Robbins is in Hong Kong and she's been listening to what the chief executives had to say.
Carrie Lam has said that it's been a difficult decision to bring this in. She says that Hong Kong isn't in a state of emergency, but the reason that she's brought in this anti-mask law is because she's concerned about the escalating violence that's been happening in Hong Kong, and particularly the involvement of the youth.
There's been an 83% drop in the number of social housing builds in rural England over the last 6 years. An investigation by Sky News and a leading think tank also found rising rates of rough sleepers in the same areas. The government says it's focused on creating affordable homes rather than social rent. The boss of Facebook's admitted increased privacy on its site will affect its ability to tackle online child abuse. The Home Secretary wants the social media giants to rethink its plans to encrypt messages so only those sending and receiving them can read them. A Banksy artwork depicting MPs in the House of Commons as chimpanzees has been sold at auction for 5 times the expected price. Devolved Parliament went for almost £10 million, including costs. Katerina Thompson says she feels in a good place to take her World Athletics Championships form into next year's Olympics. She secured heptathlon gold for Great Britain last night. She says her next priority is getting a well-earned rest.
It's been a long season. I've been competing since January. I did an indoor season as well. I feel like I'm in the right place. I've got the right training. Yeah, I just want to build.
And scientists have carried out a detailed investigation into a giant fatberg that formed underneath a town in Devon. The 64-metre monster was found in the sewers of Sidmouth last year. It was as big as the Leaning Tower of Pisa. I'm Tanya Snuggs.
Love Sport.
For my whole life, I didn't know if I even really existed. But I do.
Joker is the film of the year, says Empire. An instant classic, says NME. The Guardian calls it gloriously daring.
People are starting to notice.
Total Film says Joaquin Phoenix is astonishing.
Send in
the clown. When you bring me out, can you introduce me as Joker?
Joker, in cinemas now. Certificate 15.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile, and smart speaker. This is Love Sport Breakfast with Richard Lee and Patrick Christys.
Love Sport Breakfast, Love Sport Radio, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys. We're here with you for another hour or so before the fantastic Martin Bell and Johnny Sperling, I believe, this morning will be up next. But we've got a big hour to come. Let's go through those headlines very quickly. In the Europa League last night, it was a successful night for both Wolves and Arsenal. Not so good for Manchester United, who can only draw away at AZ Alkmaar. It was a big night for Johnson Thompson, who won the decathlon. And for those that have just joined us, Neil Harris has left Millwall as well in big news this morning. I am, of course, with Patrick Christys. How are we getting on, Patrick?
Yes, very well, thank you. Looking forward to the weekend. It's only just a matter of hours now before we are propping up a Wetherspoons bar, unless you're Alan Brazil, in which case it's only a matter of minutes.
Indeed. I've actually got a very special day tomorrow. Do you know why?
Let me think. Is it the 1 year anniversary of you becoming a Love Sport regular?
No, that's not true.
Is it the 1 year anniversary of you buying the nice supercar that you got parked outside?
Again, not true. I know that you're just playing because I know that I'm waiting for it and we've got an hour to go and I expect something to be presented to me at some point.
Does it represent the exact amount of time you're legally allowed to go from one hair transplant to another?
Okay, now I feel like you're just taking the mick out of me.
Okay, no, what is it, mate?
It's my birthday, which you know, and of course I am sure that you've had a little whip round and you've got a card signed by all of the...
Be honest with you, mate, of all the people who need a whip round in this office, it's not you.
Right. But you've got a card signed by everybody in the office, I assume. Yeah. Tomorrow is my birthday, yes.
How old?
We don't need to discuss the
Go on.
Shall we talk about...
Okay.
John, no, it's a bit of a sore subject. I mean, I'm fighting age more than anybody, as you well know.
What are you doing for your 50th then, mate?
Right, I want to talk athletics. This could be a very cold last hour, I'm afraid.
Really frosty.
Really frosty.
This is what happens on a Friday. So just for our listeners, before we do Katerina Johnson-Thompson's amazing achievement last night at the World Championships, some football, of course, Gareth Southgate's England squad. Something I want to touch on the cricket as well. It is worth noting that Rich and I's relationship deteriorates over the course of the week.
And then we need the weekend to reboot, and then it gradually gets worse as the week goes on.
Yes.
I hate your face.
Yeah.
So, KJT, I want to talk about Johnson Thompson because it was a fantastic performance. She targeted 7,000 points. She fell just short, but it was more than good enough to win the gold medal. And certainly after some of the controversy that we've had earlier this week, of course, Mo Farah's been in the news quite a lot, certainly his ex-coach, Salazar. It is nice to have a couple of really positive British stories.
It's good to just have something to cheer about. And I was saying before as well, Sports Personality of the Year this year is going to be such a hard choice. You've got Katerina Johnson-Thompson, who is she's pretty lively. You've got Dina Asher-Smith. You've got Ben Stokes. You've got all these people, haven't you, that are actually really good people as well as great sports stars. And that makes a change as well. I wonder, what are we doing differently, right? Because you know how boring a lot of sports players are, because especially, look, I don't mind saying this, especially in athletics, because they just train their entire lives day in, day out for the hurdles, and there's only so entertaining a hurdler can be who's got very little frame of reference of anything other than what's directly happening on the track. But now we are actually producing pretty interesting people.
Well, the point is as well that they're on their own. It's different if you're in a team environment to an extent, because of course, well, no, in fact, to a big extent, because you are having to have conversations every day. If you are training for an individual sport, then essentially you're working with your coach. That might be about it. There might be a few other people that you work with from time to time, but it's a very different environment than if you're going into a team environment. Who is going to pip it this season? Because I say this year, because it was almost a given that it would be Ben Stokes after what he's done. And certainly those two performances in particular are two of the biggest performances certainly I've ever seen. So you'd think ordinarily year on year that wins it, but you're right, there are a few other contenders.
Well, there are. I mean, the case for Ben Stokes, of course, has actually debatably been shattered by Katerina Johnson-Thompson, because my argument for Ben Stokes winning it was a tremendous cricketer, two absolute standout world-class performances at the World Cup and at the Ashes, rescued his nation. But he's good off the pitch as well, and this is why my argument was that he actually transcended two sports. Fabulous cricketer, even better amateur boxer. Whereas with Katerina Thompson, I mean, the heptathlon, I mean, she can do more than one sport.
Yeah.
So that Ben Stokes argument straight out the window.
Yes, indeed. I want to talk a little bit of football as well. We're going to be talking actually to Mick Martin, ex-Man United, at about 9:30. So it'll be interesting to get his take on what happened last night. We're going to be talking a bit of rugby as well. We've got Russ Milsom on the line shortly, and we will be talking to Nick Friend from The Cricketer to talk about the 100. Just want to get your thoughts on the 100 very quickly.
Well, I don't know if I'm slowly being converted to this. Initially, I was a little bit like, oh no, I don't really like it. It's shortening the game. We don't need to shorten the game anymore. It's pathetic. It's corporate. But they had the kit launch yesterday, mate.
Well, they did, and do you know what? It's funny. The second I mention cricket, so you can't see this because he's over your shoulder, but I can see producer Kieran suddenly starts scurrying around and fumbles for his headphones and gets the microphone in place. He's heard the word cricket. His ears prick up, and all of a sudden...
I'm quite used to him bearing down menacingly over my shoulder.
Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what he's doing. Kieran, go on, have your say.
Well... People are slagging off the kits, and I really like them. So everyone needs to just shut up about the kits.
Talk us through some of the kit designs.
Well, some woke people have said, "Oh, why is a cricket franchise being sponsored by snacks?"
Is that how they speak?
Yeah.
Actually, to be fair, I think it is.
And I'm like, are you for real? Like, get a grip. I mean, gambling is a problem, is an addiction, right? To have cricket sponsored by crisps, I mean, you know, get a life. I mean, there's plenty more to moan about. But
what's wrong with these kits? So I'm just looking at the kits now. What's wrong with them?
Well, thank you, Rich. Yeah.
Run us through them.
Right, so we've got Chris Works, who is part of Birmingham Phoenix. He literally looks like a bag of popcorn, right? He's in red and orange attire with the Butterkiss logo emblazoned across his chest. Looks great. Jason Roy, who plays for the Oval Invincibles, is sporting KP Nuts across his chest, which I never thought I'd say on radio, in a nice mint green nice mint green shirt there for the Oval Invincibles. Then you've got Heather Knight, who is going to play for the other London franchise, London Spirit, who is that's quite traditional, all blue, Tyrrells. Looks very posh. That's quite traditional cricket.
That's going to be the middle class team, isn't it?
100%. They play at Lords as well.
I think my favourite one is the Manchester Originals.
I totally agree.
Yeah, I think these would be, if this was a film, these would be the bad guys. They're all in black. They're quite menacing.
And they're sponsored by McCoy's, which is like the bad boy of crisps.
Yeah, that is the angry crisp.
We don't play by the rules at McCoy's.
Flame grilled steak, give me some now.
That's the team.
That's the point. Why do McCoys feel the need to flame grill everything? You could just have a normal flavour of crisp. Flame grilled chicken.
What I quite like is Jofra Archer, who's going to line up for Southern Brave, is sporting Pom Bear across his chest, which I think is got to be right up there, isn't it? As his favourite crisp, I can imagine Jofra Archer chewing down on some Pom Bears.
So this points at, we all knew that the 100 was designed to get kids involved in cricket, because grassroots interaction with cricket has been down in this country now for a number of years, even since the World Cup and all that kind of stuff. So they've gone the whole hog. They've got kind of jazzy kits, haven't they, that do frankly look, some of them, like they have been designed by children. And they've slapped kids' sweets over the front of them. What happens? Do you reckon you get a goodie bag every time that you go into the game?
Do you know what?
Half-time entertainment's just Barney.
I can't help but feel that Trent Rockets are going to be the whipping boys. They've got skips on the front of theirs. And I know they've got Joe Root, so they're going to be pretty good. But I'm looking, and you can't take the Trent Rockets seriously. I'm sorry.
No. What were some of the foods that because your birthday is coming up tomorrow, Rich, you keep crowbarring in. When you had kids' parties, what would be some of the foods that would be on offer?
Oh, no. My kids' parties, I used to have a mini Olympics. So at my parents' house, we would set up long jump, high jump. They've got quite a nice house, so there'd be like a tennis competition, basketball, swimming, penalty shootout. So then what we'd have at the end of the day...
You're shattering the stereotypes that you've got to overcome some kind of adversity to make it in the Premier League.
It's been incredibly difficult. So at the end of the day, we'd then have we'd have a medal ceremony for each of the events. Yeah. I'd only invite my friends that I knew I could beat. So ordinarily, it would mean a lot of gold medals at the end of the birthday. I loved my birthdays. So I'm going to do the same tomorrow. And you are invited, Mr. Patrick Christys, to my mini Olympics.
To be honest with you, mate, I don't know how you're going to deal with the fact that I'm just going to beat you at most things.
Whoa, okay. I was going to self-deprecate, and I was going to say, I wonder why Rich has chosen me as producer, and now I get it. But, you're confident, Patrick.
I can definitely outrun you.
Have you seen you?
Mate, I've run the marathon in 4 hours, 36 minutes.
Okay.
Without any training.
Is this what we're going to do? We're going to challenge each other on air now to...
I would, you know what, actually, if it will shut you up, yes. I will challenge you to some kind of physical contest.
Let's challenge it to like a 5K or something.
Or a fight.
I mean, happily. Do you know what, though? I did tell you the story about me and my dad. So my dad was very, very good at chess. I think I've told you this story. But that was the one thing he had over me. I can beat him at every sport. And then one thing he had over me was chess. We were on holiday, and we decided to have a best of 7. He's gone 2-0 up on night 1. He was very, very confident in himself, gloating, etc. So we're in Florida. Beautiful sunshine. I spent 12 hours the next day in my room studying chess. Came back, won 4-2.
Really? See, actually, I just made friends with Svetlana next door, so I've got a checkmate as well.
Clever. See what you've done there.
Sorry, everyone.
Just to make note as well, the Welsh Fire, they've got hula hoops on the front of
I thought
their...
you were breaking a news story. I thought I was on what? Oh, no!
What's happened?
No! The Brecon Beacons are on fire!
This is one thing I'm annoyed about with the 100. I'm a massive advocate of it, but Welsh Fire annoys me, right? Because, as you know, there's only 8 franchises, and Welsh Fire have to be... basically, their closest counties are obviously Glamorgan, but then Gloucestershire and Somerset. Now, I'm a Somerset fan, and I have to support a team that's called Welsh Fire that has Welsh on its badge. I have no affinity to the Welsh. I've been taught to hate the Welsh in sport. So, realistically, am I going to support Welsh Fire?
I think the other one for me, and probably the laziest of the names, is the Super Northern Chargers.
Oh, God.
Not a fan of that
No, but
name.
I like that because it's like, I'm Northern, but Johnny Vegas is super Northern.
Yeah. Funny enough, he's a head coach.
I'd love it if Johnny Vegas was head coach of the Super Northern, whatever they're called.
9:15.
Love sport.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
When looking for the best possible deal for his car insurance, Jim went on a spokesmansaid.com and saved hundreds.
I'm Jim. I'm a radio presenter based in Glasgow. I couldn't believe how expensive the car insurance for our Citroen C4 Picasso was going to be from my existing insurer. I went on a Spokesman Said and saved an incredible £600. Just amazing.
Find quotes from over 100 leading insurance providers at a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Whoa! Look how much saturated fat is in these chocolate biscuits. It's surprising how much is in our food and drinks. For us kids, eating too much saturated fat can lead to harmful fat building up inside, which we can't see, increasing the risk of heart disease or stroke when we get older. So be food smart. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app and start making healthier choices today.
Monday is a truly awful way to spend 1/7 of your life, I guarantee it.
This is Love Sport.
Interesting team. Look, strong team. We know that Argentina are at their best at World Cups. They have, I think Creevy spoke of a number of things this week, one of which was how tight they are as a team. Yeah, and they're a pretty good team if they can get Creevy to come off the bench. So the standoff we know pretty well. Unfortunately, I can't pronounce his name, so I'm not going to try. But yeah, he's been a good performer for Cast for a number of years. He's very solid in terms of his goal kicking, and we'll know that he'll bring something different to the game. So we respect them very greatly.
That's, of course, Eddie Jones there on Argentina. England take on Argentina at Tokyo Stadium. Delighted to say we've got Russ Milson, More Over Rugby podcast, on the line to discuss this with us. Morning, Russ.
Morning, gents. How you doing?
Well, yeah, good, thanks. Hope you're well. This will be England's toughest test so far?
Well, without a shadow of a doubt, Argentina are a very, very, very good side, and competing in that World Rugby Championship as they do, they're always going to be dangerous.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, so look, how do you reckon England should set up? Really, how should they take the game to the Argentinians?
First and foremost, they've just got to play their own game. England are at their best with front football, as any team are, but I believe they picked players like Underhill and Curry to get that quick ball for the Ford Farrell access to try and get Tuilagi in the game as soon as possible.
And how will England stand up to the physical test?
England are a powerful side themselves. Like I mentioned, you've got Curry and Underhill that will tackle anything. Billy Vunipola will run through walls. So, the likes of Carl Sinclair are abrasive. England won't fear the physical aspect that Argentina bring, but they've definitely got to be respectful of it.
So, just before we get back into the maybe more technical elements of this rugby match question, Eddie Jones has been having honesty sessions with his team. I don't know if you've seen this, right, where the England players will sit down and they'll be brutally honest to each other, and that's a way of kind of team building and airing any grievances. I think it comes after the kind of Mike Brown incident that happened. Rich and I did it here, and it went badly, did not bring us closer together as a unit. In fact, the opposite. We don't talk now apart from when we're legally, contractually obliged to do so. What do you make of the whole Eddie Jones team-building methods?
Look, it's one of those things. If everyone's on the same page and everybody's willing to do it, then it could work. I think it only takes one person to not quite be on board with it, then the whole thing comes crashing down. You've only got to look at that England cricket team that went to Australia, and you've got Kevin Peterson and Graham Swan and James Anderson, that they tried that honesty thing, and that didn't go down too well either. So I think you've all got to be on the same page, otherwise it will just come crashing down around your ears.
Yeah, me and Patrick definitely weren't on the same page. A lot has been made of the handling errors in the World Cup so far. What conditions can we expect tomorrow?
It's going to be hot, but I think the humidity is what's causing the problem. It's like playing in the rain, the humidity, because they're so sweaty that the hands are not getting on the ball. But it's the same for both sides. England probably not as used to it as Argentina would be, but I think England have got the class to win out in the end.
Okay, all right. And it does look as though the draw actually in the group stages is favouring England a little bit. The fact that they're going to have to peak at the right moment because they play France next, Argentina, and of course they've had the two slightly easier games to begin with, contrasting with the way that New Zealand, for example, had to start their World Cup. Do you think that's something that's going to pay off for England?
I'm not so sure. When it comes to tournament rugby, you've just got to take one game at a time. And when you look at the changes that Eddie Jones has made to the teams as we move through, he's building towards getting that nailed on 23 towards the back end of the tournament. So, looking at the draw, yes, it's good to be playing those teams when we know that our fate is in our own hands.
And how important is it to have Vunipola back on the bench?
Mako is massive for England. I'm slightly concerned that it might be a week too soon, but I think they're never going to know, and they've got to get him in at some time. And if he gets through, let's say probably 20-25 minutes tomorrow against Argentina, he'll probably 100 start against France.
And Eddie Jones was talking about Augustine Creevy in that interview there, who brandished English rugby boring. What do you make of those comments?
That's interesting for Argentina to call English rugby boring, because they've had some individual flair players, but they base their game around sort of brute force and keeping things tight for quite a number of years now. So I think it's a bit ironic that Augustine Creevy is called our rugby boring. I don't care if it's boring, frankly, as long as it's successful. Everybody talks about the best teams. You look at the Clive Woodward team of 2003. They weren't the most spectacular, but they were very, very successful. So as long as it's getting results, then long may it continue.
And just to touch on Ireland, they secured that bonus point yesterday against Russia. Wasn't hugely convincing, but important.
Yeah, and as I said previously, when you come to tournament rugby, it's all about results. And there's a lot being made of, Ireland haven't really performed, they didn't play well, they didn't look convincing. But, ultimately, you get through a game with a bonus point, with as lesser injuries as possible, and you're winning, really. I mean, they've got concerns over, I think the back row guy, whose name escapes me, who came in for Jack Conan. He came in, he flew out, started the game, and he's injured as well now. So it's that's the key to the group stages, will be keeping your players fit and making sure you progress.
Yeah, and just a word on Japan, of course. They beat Ireland, arguably the most sensational World Cup win in history. It seems to me like the country's putting on a lesson in how to host an international sporting tournament. Everyone seems to be completely buying into it, and of course their own side are doing well as well. How good a side are the Japanese team? Do you think they are a kind of force of the future, really?
Force of the future, probably not, but they're certainly extremely competitive. I mean, if you looking back to sort of 8-10 years ago when Argentina were in a very similar position. Japan could well be there. That performance against Ireland was absolutely top draw, and some might argue that Ireland took Japan lightly. But when you watch that game as a whole, Japan out-rucked them, they out-mauled them, they were better handling, they had better intensity, and they deserve all the plaudits that they get. One of our podcasts is a cameraman actually, and he's actually out there filming it, and he said himself that the way that the Japanese are hosting this tournament is phenomenal. The way the stadiums are full, the cities where the games are being hosted are doing an absolutely great job, and I think that they should be commended for a country that isn't sort of huge on rugby. Hopefully, this will have a massive impact for them.
And a little prediction on England from you, if that's okay.
England by 15, so I reckon something like maybe 27-12.
Okay, fantastic. We'll take that happily. Great stuff, Russ. Appreciate you coming on.
Cheers, gents.
That's Russ Milson there. More All Over Rugby podcast. Talking a bit about the handling areas. And he was saying, he made an interesting point. It's so humid over there that effectively it's like playing in the rain. And of course, they're so sweaty that makes it that much more difficult. Now, of course, you're a very sweaty human being.
I'm not sweaty at all.
No, but like when we're in here and you start to drip and stuff.
That doesn't happen.
But do you think that will make it more difficult?
You understand I've got a lawyer, don't you? Who's very busy, actually.
So he's got a few things going on at the moment.
He's got a few pots on the boil. Yeah. But, I mean, I'm pretty sure I could squeeze you in.
Yeah, feel free. I mean, let's just... Do you know what? I think we need another honesty session. I think that's what we need. It really didn't work very well the other day, did it?
No, it's made things much worse.
It's driven a rift between both of us. Yeah.
Honestly, mate, yeah, there's a really kind of it's just a chasm, really, where our friendship used to be.
Yeah, anyway, calm down. I'll give you a cloth here. You can wipe your brow.
All right, mate. Is that the same one you used to polish the top of your head?
Oh, we're going to be speaking to Mick Martin very shortly. Of course, ex-Man United, ex-Newcastle. Before that, I just want to touch on the England squad. Of course, it was announced.
State of us.
What happened?
Right, okay, go on.
Do you know what? This is like a classic relationship. It started so positively.
Mate, we were texting all the time.
Oh, do you remember?
Couldn't live without each other. Now we can't live with each other.
Phoning each other for hours at a time. And now it's just simply, Patrick, you picked up the kids?
Oh, we never do that thing anymore.
The England squad, Southgate on Dele Alli. He was omitted, of course, and this is Gareth Southgate's reason why.
So it's a little bit like Delhi, really, where the season hasn't quite got going for either of them, but we're expecting them to challenge in coming months. But to put them in means I've got to leave somebody out who is in form and who's playing well. So, you know, a Mason Mount or a James Maddison or one of those, they're in competition with those guys within the squad. So whenever you ask me about who I've left out, who am I leaving out to bring them back in? It's a difficult call in those positions in particular. And I think, you know, all of those players would recognise the rationale for the decisions.
Of course, when he says they, he is, of course, talking about Oxlade-Chamberlain as well. For Dele Alli, is Dele Alli at a bit of a crossroads?
I don't know really. I suppose yes, maybe actually, because it does look like the type of player who's obviously got bags of talent, but whether or not he's going to go anywhere with it now, I just wonder if, you know, we talk about the fact that football's kicked on. Like, has it kicked on so much so quickly that now even Dele Alli's been left behind slightly?
Well, is it that? Is it the fact that Dele Alli stood still? Is it the fact that Dele Alli's maybe gone backwards slightly? Or is it the fact that there's so many others that suddenly over the last year or so have come to the fore?
I wonder whether if Dele Alli was a few years younger and this was his breakthrough season, where actually we would be billing him as, this guy is going to be a star of the future, because he does have the odd little star turn, but it's the fact that he's been around so long that you just get dazzled by new things, like a magpie.
You do. The shiny object syndrome, I think it's called. But I think that the other part of it is, of course, the stats, which are becoming bigger. Look, we talk about Jesse Lingard, and it has been a tough time for him. Southgate touches on it, that as well as some of the performances, and he had some good performances, when you're not backing it up with numbers, which Dele Alli hasn't either recently, goals, assists, it is important. It's all good and well that you're having good games of football from time to time, but you need to back it up with numbers.
Yes, exactly. As any good accountant will tell you.
There you go. We're going to be speaking to Mick Martin, ex-Man United, very shortly.
This is Love Sport.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
This is Lionel, another very happy person who saved themselves money at a spokesmansaid.com.
Hi, I'm Lionel from Peacehaven. I took note of what the spokesman said and I saved £484 per year on my energy, and I recommend everybody does the same.
A spokesmansaid.com. Getting real people, real savings. Compare, switch and save with a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit wedooh.com. We Do, the smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
There are many things a mother can pass on to her baby. Her smile, her eye colour, and her immunity to whooping cough. Whooping cough is a very dangerous illness for young babies, and at the moment it's spreading fast. A simple vaccination during your pregnancy can help to protect your baby in their first weeks. Please speak to your GP, nurse, or healthcare professional and pass on your immunity.
This is Love Sport.
Yeah, well, it's a good point away from home against a good opponent, difficult opponent, very difficult surface. Remember, they beat Feyenoord 3-0 away from home just now. We made many changes, and I'm very pleased. Of course, it should have been a win. I'm fed up talking about penalties we should have had. Arsenal on Monday and now. So that's a penalty 101 times out of 100, because you cannot make that decision wrong in football.
That was, of course, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer on the back of their 0-0 draw away at AZ Alkmaar last night. Delighted to say we've got Mick Martin, ex-Man United, on the phone to talk about it with us. Morning, Mick.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Hope you're well too. I mean, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer trying to find positives. Obviously, he's frustrated in regards to the potential penalty. Truth be told, though, they had no shots on target. It's another disappointing display. What's your thoughts on general in terms of what's happening at United at the moment?
Well, you look back at the period when Solskjaer was appointed, and things were flying, and they won something like 8 out of 9 games, and everyone was demanding that Ole get the job, and quite rightly so, because what was happening at the time was really spectacular. As opposed to when Mourinho was involved, everybody seemed happy. Goals kept flying in, performances were good, and now things have changed dramatically. He's got a few players, and I thought when he got Maguire, and I thought this is going to be a hard team to beat. But I've watched them a couple of times, and they've been really, really disappointing. And I don't know what it's down to, because I can even see it in Michael Carrick's face. I can see it in Solskjaer's face that things aren't going so well, and we need a break somewhere down the line. It certainly wasn't going to happen last night. I don't think that competition is going to help Manchester United. I think Solskjaer would be a lot happier if he hadn't been in that tournament, to be quite honest with you, and just concentrate on the domestic Premiership. But that's not the case. I didn't even go out of my way to watch the game fully. I watched bits and pieces of it, and it was just boring completely, and that's not Manchester United.
So, do you think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer regrets taking the job?
No, not at all. Absolutely. Great opportunity for him. And he's got paid a lot of money to take the job. When you've got to take a job like Manchester United and you inherit good players, because there are good players there, and you get them going, as I said, which he did at the start of the period, and he must have thought to himself, well, look, this is not too hard a job. These players are winning week in, week out for me. I'll take the job, get a 2-year contract, get myself 10 million a year, whatever it might be, and get on with life. But, he probably didn't realise that he could come into a period as is Manchester United at the moment when they're struggling. Last week against Arsenal, disappointment. Both teams, probably Arsenal shaded it. But Old Trafford's a place where people should be, dreading to go. I used to love playing there when I was at home, but I would have hated to travel there, which I did many a time after that. But no, it's not looking very good for Solskjaer, and he's got to buck the trend up.
Is there anyone out there, though, that could do a better job, or is it just a case of any manager would struggle with this current squad? Because for me, just quickly, the problem seems to go a bit deeper. It's all very well and good playing the kids, right? But you looked at Arsenal's kids last night and compared them to Manchester United kids, and Arsenal's kids were better.
Yeah, probably were. I mean, it's but putting them in at the deep end is a different scenario. I think there's a mixture of putting them in with good players and experienced players. I'm not too sure whether the chief executive is out looking for a replacement for Solskjaer at the moment. Yeah, there is a bit of uncomfortable feeling in and around. I don't think. I'm not too sure how the players are feeling, because normally when the manager gets the sack, it's down to discontent and players moaning and groaning and sticking the knife in the manager, and not enjoying training and not like coming into work in the mornings. But if that's the case, then he's in trouble. But I don't think it is. I think the players are quite happy with him. It's just down to them to turn it around at the moment. And they've got to go to Newcastle on Sunday, and well, there's a game for you.
I was going to say, an interesting one for you personally as well, of course. 2 of your former clubs. Out of interest, who are you going to be cheering on Sunday?
Mind your own business.
But you're right. By the way, it's a huge club but I want to touch on Newcastle as well while we got you on the line, because it's another story altogether there, of course, at the moment, and another manager that's under pressure, some would say harshly so. But this game is a massive game for both clubs.
Yeah, it's a huge, huge game. There's huge pressure on both Steve Bruce and Ole Solskjaer. There's more pressure on the players because they've got to step out in the surface in front of, normally it's 53,000 sellout at St James's, but over the last couple of home games, it's dropped down to about 45, which is still a big, big crowd, but I think it'll be fairly busy on Sunday. If these players on both sides can accept responsibility, once you cross the line, there's no point in turning around and looking towards the manager and saying, where do you want me to go? You actually do it yourself, and you react to where the ball is in the course of the game. If you're available to receive it, you get yourself into position to receive it. If you're in a position to bomb forward and try and get into the box and score a goal, do it. You don't you forget what Steve Bruce says, and you forget what Solskjaer says, and you get on with your job. And this is where both teams are struggling in relation to dominance. They need a big, big player in the middle of the park, both teams.
Yeah,
Sean Longstaff has come back. But when I'm talking about big players, I'm talking about the Roy Keanes and the Brian Robsons who go and run games for you. They don't look at the touchline to the manager. They sort it out themselves,
Do you think there is a lack of leadership there? And do you think that's... is there a bit of a problem with that generally? Is it the fact that maybe a lot... At United and Newcastle as well?
Yeah, I think so. Certainly from the games. I've saw Newcastle play Arsenal this year. I've seen them play Brighton. I've seen them play Watford. Both Brighton and Watford, awful games, well below the level expected. Not you. I go harking back on it, but Rafa Benitez's team, the second half of last season, made it hugely difficult for any team at St James's Park. Now Brighton have come here already. Watford have come here already. Teams that you want to turn over and get your points. The Arsenal, Tottenham's, Man United, you're not expected to. Yet they go against these two teams, and in both games they looked as bad as the other teams did, which really, really annoyed me, to be honest with you. They should be asking questions of these so-called lesser teams, but it hasn't been the case so far.
And what's your thoughts on the job that Steve Bruce has done so far?
could do better. Is the answer. He's a smashing lad, Steve Bruce. I know him. I've been in his company a few times, having a few lemonades, no doubt. But when you look down on the pitch, you think to yourself, something. Certainly there's something not right. These players are not sure where they're supposed to be and what system they're supposed to play and what's his job and what's his job. Now, Bruce has got to sort that out again very quickly. He's got to spend as much time as he wants in the training field through the course of the week. One, on getting a system that suits the players, and sticking to it. Don't go chopping and changing. If you want a system in your mind and you think you've got the players to play within that system, you do it. And don't change it the following week because players become angry then. They say, well, why are we doing this? It's just taking a chance, and you can't do that in football.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's certain similarities when you look at it with Newcastle and United where, I look at United from the outside and all I can think is that the environment can't quite be right within the squad. You look at of course, Liverpool and Man City being the two outstanding teams at the moment where it seems like a player joins them and improves on the back of joining them, whereas at United at the moment, and Newcastle maybe more so because of issues off the field and a bit of discontentment with the fans, it just seems like a little bit of a toxic environment.
Well, let me talk about the Newcastle thing, really, to be honest with you. You've got to have the bottle to be able to go out and play in front of a lot these sort of crowds. You talk about Liverpool. You're talking about Liverpool and Manchester City. Yeah, you go there. The players that they sign are players that are on $250,000 a week and international players. So no wonder it's not going to be difficult for them to slot into the squads. But it's different. When you're signing for Newcastle, say the likes of Almiron and Joe Linton and St. Maximin. Players who have been in and out of teams over the period and played at a lesser level. So it takes a while for them to settle in. And, when I saw Almiron, for instance, first, I thought, what a player he's going to be, because he's going to frighten the life out of people. And with his pace, he does, but he seems to be, at this moment, the last couple of times I've seen him, just lacking slightly in a bit of confidence because of the fact that he hasn't hit the back of the net. And, things are going to be tough for him until he does put one away.
Great stuff. Lastly, a prediction for the game Sunday?
Manchester United, I fancy, based on what I've seen of Newcastle at home the last couple of times, and if they were to beat Man United, I'd be very happy. It'd be a great result for the club, but I can't see them based on what I've seen so far.
Do you think though that if Newcastle do beat United, that Solskjaer is really on borrowed time, or do you reckon they'll just give him to the end of the season anyway?
But I don't see him want to get rid of him so quickly. You can't become that bad a manager in the space of maybe 3 or 4 months, because last year was pretty good. Things started badly this year for him, but I can't see him wanting to shove him out. And I can understand the fact that the start of the season has been very disappointing for them. But, you can't keep doing things like that. I would keep Solskjaer on, that's for sure. Certainly till sort of February anyway, see how things go. And if it's not, and the punters are unhappy, well then you go and get rid.
Fantastic. Mick, really appreciate you joining us.
No, pleasure.
Great stuff. Mick Marston there, ex-Man United, next Newcastle as well, of course. The big game this weekend, Newcastle taking on Manchester United. Do you know what? I can't help but feel this could have draw written all over it again.
Yeah, of course it does. Any game involving Manchester United at the moment has draw written all over it. I actually would rather go, on Sunday, I'd rather go carpet shopping at B&Q or... Yeah, just working my way through the Dulet's colour chart for the house that I don't quite own yet.
They've got a sale on this weekend, haven't they? I'll come join you.
Wait, hang on a second. Does it end Sunday?
It might do.
Oh, we better get down.
You better get down there.
You never have one of those.
Here's a question for you. Was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer ever a good manager?
That's exactly what I was thinking when he said that. When he went, you don't become a bad manager in the space of 3 months. I wonder whether or not he's ever a good manager. Now, you know some people who've played under him, don't you?
I do, yeah.
What do they say about him?
They are... don't give me that look, Patrick. No, look, I know certain people that played under him, and it sounds like initially he had a lot to learn, but this was many years ago, and I guess it's hard to know what he's done when he's been abroad. It's hard to know whether he's then continued to improve, which I would assume that he has. Yeah. That being said, we can only judge him on what we're seeing now, which initially was very, very good. I see Kieran has pulled his mic down, he's put his headset on, he's got that frown on his face.
Does Mulder prepare for Man United?
I don't know. That's where I come back. And I made a point initially, which I think, and of course, no manager wants another manager to fail, but there'll be certain managers who have done the job for 20 years that would have looked at Solskjaer taking over first 10 games and thought, actually, he's making this look a little bit easy. You know, management isn't that easy. It's like you don't just suddenly become a professional footballer having not trained to be a professional footballer. Management there's a skill involved. It's an art to be a good manager, and he did make it look very, very easy to begin with. And you just wonder whether some of those games where they might have got away with it, Tottenham always being a great example, David De Gea making 11 saves where they won 1-0 and everyone talking about it being the Solskjaer factor, it might have just been luck. It might have just been that actually now things have evened themselves out. Things do even themselves out ordinarily in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. But I just wonder if this goes higher up than Solskjaer. And I really do believe Solskjaer would have wanted to have gotten rid of a lot more players and had a higher turnover in his squad during the summer. And Man United, with their financial capabilities, have the ability to do that. But the Maguire transfer rumbled on and on and on for so long, and they never got it sorted until the back end of the transfer window. He wasn't able to do anything. And then they rushed the Lukaku sale, they rushed the Sanchez loan, and they couldn't get anyone in. And now you're having Daniel James having to play a key role in the squad. You're having players like Mason Greenwood having to play in these rotated sides. It's just not good enough for a team like Manchester United.
I do wonder the amount of people that no doubt will be involved at the higher level with United when it comes to recruitment, of course the members of the board, but the amount of staff that undoubtedly they will employ. I wonder whether it makes it more complicated when it comes to actually bringing in the likes of Harry Maguire. And you have to question just how good a negotiation team or negotiators they have, because I think for a lot of other clubs, the moment you know Manchester United are interested, you add a zero. It's as simple as that. You know that they have the money, of course, and that is the case. Look, had Harry Maguire gone to, he wouldn't have gone to a mid-table team, but had he of course Leicester wouldn't have asked for as much. But they knew it was Manchester United. They knew that nobody else was in for him, and they knew that Manchester United weren't in for anybody else. So they held all the cards. It was a great example, I guess, of where United, they've tried to negotiate, and ended up paying more than Leicester initially asked for.
No, I get that, but why haven't other players
shocking,
gone out the door?
Sorry, but that is absolutely astonishing that they've ended up negotiating for that length of time and then paying more than Leicester initially asked for.
It's that classic one, like, I'll give you £1. I want 10. Okay, I'll give you £2. I want 15. Okay, all right, I'll do it for you. Do you know what I mean? It's like, they're getting further away. I need to quickly do it.
It's like me at market. I'm just an absolute sucker for stuff.
Yeah. There you go. That's exactly what happened.
No, it's true. And I just think, there's players there that don't deserve to be at United and they're still hanging around and actually playing in this team. Like Matic. I mean, what's he done for the last 2 seasons? Juan Mata looks gone. Rojo played last night at centre-back. They wanted to get rid of him for the last 2 seasons. It's ridiculous, and they're all playing against AZ Alkmaar. It's no wonder that it was an uninspiring performance, because the likes of Rojo and Matic know they're not wanted at the club. The likes of Fred, he knows he's not wanted. So why would you bother performing to your best? Realistically, there's no motivation there for them.
Yeah. Do you know, a quick word, just part of the Goalkeepers Union, of course, quick word on De Gea. He's actually been, other than the mistake against Crystal Palace, he was very good again last night. We're starting to see, you wonder now that the contract's been sorted, it does seem like we're starting to see the David De Gea that we saw for so long.
Well, I think De Gea's performances, his exceptional performances, especially when Van Gaal was in charge, kind of papered over the cracks a little bit.
Yeah, massively so. How low down the league would Manchester United have finished if David De Gea hadn't have made some of those absolutely world-class saves?
I can tell you, if you believe in the whole expected goals, the season that Mourinho finished second, if it wasn't for David De Gea and it had actually been the expected goals were what they should have been, they'd have been 6th.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly that. And I think that's quite flattering, actually. And even the season before that as well. So United do owe him quite a lot.
14 minutes to 10.
Love Sport Radio, the station giving fans a voice.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
AsSpokesmanSaid.com is a leading price comparison website that allows you to compare every energy tariff on the market in seconds. We have more deals than any other comparison website offering energy prices, and our impartial independent switching service is free of charge. Nearly 50% of UK households have switched bills, and there are hundreds to be saved. Visit AsSpokesmanSaid.com, as recommended in The Guardian, The Times and The Sun. spokesmansaid.com. If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do, the smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Oh, it's okay. Let's face it, when your kids are ill, you do anything to help them feel better. But remember, antibiotics aren't always needed. You might not realise it, but taking antibiotics when you don't need them puts you and your family at risk of a longer and more severe illness. Help keep your family well. Always take your doctor's advice on antibiotics. Search NHS antibiotics. All better.
I've heard that England does not have a kidney bank, but it does have a Liverpool.
Love sport.
Lost for breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you for another 10 minutes or so. And then, of course, the excellent Martin Bell is up next. We will be back on Monday at 6:30. In fact, I'm back on Sunday. I believe Patrick is back tomorrow as well. So lots of us over the weekend. Obviously, we spoke a lot of football today, a lot of athletics. We're going to talk a little bit of cricket because the 100, of course, is big news. And who better to discuss it with than Nick Friend from The Cricketer. Morning, Nick.
Morning, guys. How are you?
Yeah, good. Hope you're well. Well, the teams have been announced. The kits have been seen as well. First and foremost, your thoughts on the kits?
I quite like them. I mean, I feel like that's put me in a minority on social media and stuff, but I think they do the job that they've been asked to do, and that people that, I mean, they've certainly given the competition, people something to relate to if they're not necessarily cricket fans at the same time. They are bright and quirky, and frankly, whenever you start up these franchise competitions, it's so hard to get this stuff right. It all looks contrived, and it always looks slightly cringeworthy and slightly odd. And yeah, the crisps are a bit weird. I guess there'll be talk about. I mean, there's already been a lot of talk about whether crisps are the best way to market a new competition at young people, at children. But frankly, in a sporting world that sort of obsessed with online gambling, and we've had alcohol in the past and cigarettes in the past, slapped all over tournaments, and so crisps really feels like a mountain, out of the molehill kind of thing. I quite like the kits. I think they're quite funny, and I guess to some extent that is the idea.
Yeah, look, that's it, isn't it? They are bright, they're vibrant, they're got a little bit of a slight kind of like street art style, which is designed to appeal to the younger generation, which is what we want. But spare a thought for poor old Jason Roy, though, because he's got KP's nuts on his chest.
Actually, I have to say his is my least favourite kit. I feel like the KP is too big, and the logo is a bit weird.
Yes, it's
so
true.
I feel for him and Chris Wokes and Moeen Ali with the butterkissed popcorn as well. That's quite an interesting set of colours, but. I quite like it. I don't know why. I don't know quite what.
No, I'm with you, genuinely. I know it sounds. I have this habit, right, where everything I say sounds deeply sarcastic, which, as you can imagine, makes great radio. But this is. I actually quite like them. On an actual cricketing front, though, which one of these teams do you think looks like they might actually go on and win the thing? Is there any particular side we should watch out for more than any of the others? Do you reckon?
I guess it's hard. It's hard, I guess, to get so early, and they've picked. I mean, just look at the three they've all picked. I think the Trent Rockets had a very good day yesterday. I mean, to a point, you couldn't really go wrong. If you had a test player in your catchment area, as most of the teams did, then you were sort of allocated them almost immediately. So Josh Butler at the Manchester Originals immediately, makes them a strong side. Not Yorkshire, the Northern Superchargers had that choice with Root, Bairstow, Stokes. Probably took frankly the only option after this summer with Stokes, obviously, which I think has made Trent Rockets really strong. They've got a trio right now of Root, Hales, and Gurney. Harry Gurney's probably one of the best death bowlers on the planet. Alex Hales, for whatever's gone on off the field in recent times, remains a seriously talented, seriously hard-hitting T20 batsman. And in Joe Root, they've got a guy who didn't have a great big bash when he was out there last year, but still got a brilliant record in T20 cricket for England, and is a fine player. Of course, the England Test players will only play a couple of games anyway before they go off to their Pakistan series. So it's hard at this point to make a real judgment, especially given the nature of a draft. You can have all the best laid plans in the world, but they can go up and smoke very quickly if someone else picks who you want.
Yeah, and just talk to me a little bit about some of the money for some of the players involved in this, because all of a sudden, I suppose the IPL first brought it all in and things, but these more kind of franchise-based competitions open up a whole new, much more lucrative avenue for these players. Is there a risk, actually, that all of a sudden playing for your country just starts to look like an inconvenience when you can go and become a millionaire from playing in these smaller competitions around the world?
I think we've certainly seen that in some countries where their central contract system is not what it is in England. I mean, I guess we're very fortunate, and the ECB are very fortunate that they are wealthy enough that that's never really been an issue as yet, because the England boys on the big central contracts, especially the ones who are playing red ball and white ball, frankly, are doing so well through those central contracts that actually, it's not a huge loss. And at the same time, of course, a lot of these guys are being given the opportunities to go over to the IPL, the Big Bash. As in Butler did the Big Bash last year, IPL earlier this year. Root did the Big Bash. Ben Stokes has done the IPL a few times. The opportunities are still there for them, and the ones they miss out on are the ones over the winter when they're touring with the winter tours, and perhaps something like the CPL, and obviously they've had the Ashes going on through the Caribbean Premier League. But at the same time, I think the money they make out of those central contracts do end up outweighing, what you get in those franchise tournaments. That does absolutely vary from country to country. We've seen the West Indies, and look at how strong a West Indian international side could be at full strength compared to what they are because of what's on offer for them in these franchise tournaments. I mean, it's absolutely an issue. It's an issue that the ICC and World Cricket does need to try and sit down and sort out.
The full draft takes place on October 20th. What foreign players are you most looking forward to seeing?
The list is extraordinary. I think it was always going to be, extraordinary. So it is the sole franchise competition going on at that time, and it's new, and ultimately it's 100 balls, it's 20 balls to you. I don't think that makes a difference, particularly to the players. I certainly don't think it's a huge issue. There are a lot of issues with the 100. I don't think that's one of them. In terms of international players, guys we've seen a lot of them in this country playing the Blast, but I love watching someone like Rashid Khan. Babar Azam, a fantastic year at Somerset, and is just a phenomenal player for Pakistan. Malinga's put himself forward. It'd be lovely to see him have sort of one last hurrah over here. I mean, he just keeps going. He's got his own style about him, but feels like 20 years on from when he first started, no one's really worked out how to play him yet. Obviously, Chris Gale's the big ticket, isn't he? That you'll rock up and hit you out of the oval, and that'll get bums on. That should get bums on seats. You like to think so, anyway. I mean, there are so many huge names. Almost more interesting to see what happens with the English guys in the draft, because I think what we're going to see over the next couple of weeks is actually how strong the domestic circuit, certainly in white ball cricket, is. There are guys that we think should, have certainties to get deals that might either go for far cheaper than we thought or might not get one at all.
Great stuff. Nick, appreciate you joining us. That's Nick Friend there from The Cricketer. It does promise to be interesting. Keen to get your thoughts. I know you're a big cricket fan, Patrick. And of course, there's lots of different formats now. You've got the IPL, you've got the Big Bash, you've now got the 100. Have you got a particular favourite?
I think I've always liked the Big Bash, to be honest with you. I mean, the IPL started things. Obviously, Joe Root couldn't quite pull it off in the Big Bash, but you've seen a lot of players go out there and do very well. But I've got a feeling now that the 100 could actually overtake it all. What about you, Rick?
I'm excited for the 100. I think the kits in particular, like you said, they're so vibrant. I think it'll just be a lot of fun. By the way, it has got so much criticism. The fact that there's actually very little difference between T20 and the 100 in terms of the actual number of balls that are bowled.
Yeah, well, exactly. But look, it's a shot in the arm, isn't it? It's a Madonna-esque rebranding of oneself, a reinvention, if you will. And I think that this has got all the makings. I was very sceptical of this. I was deeply sceptical. And then I just thought, why? Well, it's because I don't like change, actually. And this could be all right, like it's colourful, it's vibrant. The 100 ball thing, I'm getting more behind this because, like, my missus at the minute hates cricket. I've tried to teach her the umpire signals, and she looks now like one of the people that you see, when it's time to go to bed, and when you're watching like the weather or something, and the sign language person comes on at the bottom of the screen. That's what she looks like while she's trying to signal a 4 or a 6, bless her. And so I think let's get her to the 100.
Yeah.
It's 100 balls. It's over pretty short and sweet. She's seen people tonking it out the park. She's happy. And this is it. It's good for everyone.
Fantastic. And on that note, we will call it a